5 of 20 of the MCBH Drexeline Plaza. If everyone could mute themselves. If you're not on the zoning hearing board, please mute yourself. Everyone, please mute yourself. And I'll turn things over to our chair, Ms. McPherson.
Yep. So I guess, like Peter said, we are here for a special meeting for application 12-5 of 20 for the Drexeline Shopping Center. I won't read the whole order or the announcement, but I guess if we want to, do they have counsel, I assume?
They do. So let's talk about that. So counsel for Drexeline, are you here, Mr. D'Amico and Mr.
We're here, Mr. Musso.
Great. I know the township is here with its solicitor, Mr. Kilkenny.
I am here with Courtney Richardson, and we're here not representing Drexeline, but Mayor Keffer, and we're going to go request party status.
So party status is granted. Let's go over that. Is there anybody else seeking party status? You don't need party status to make public comment. You don't get party status automatically. If you want party status, I'll have to question you and the board will have to talk about it. But certainly anybody who wants to make public comment can make public comment. So is there anybody else who is seeking party status on this application tonight? Either raise your hand on the app or just feel free to say something right now. All right, I don't see anybody seeking party status. Again, we'll take public comment at the end of the presentation, and I'm sure if any of the public has questions, those can be asked at the end as well. But again, we're here on the application of MCBH Drexeline Plaza LP for determination that the board's prior granting of a use variance for multifamily dwelling and apartments covers an additional 42 multifamily dwelling apartments that are now shown on the plan, or in the alternative, a variance from section 301 of the Upper Darby Township zoning ordinance to permit those additional 42 multifamily dwelling apartments. They're also seeking a reaffirmation of the relief granted in this zoning hearing board's June 28th, 2018 decision, or in the alternative, a determination that that decision has not expired, and any other variances or other relief deemed necessary to develop the property as described and depicted in the plan, which of course is situated at 5100 State Road in Drexel Hill, 19026. It's the C2 Traditional General Commercial District, which is in our first council district. Mr. D'Amico, let me ask, are you asking for any other specific zoning relief? I know you say anything else necessary. Is there anything else you think is necessary?
No.
Okay. All right. So
Excuse me, just before you, this is Lee Jordan, before you continue, I need clarification on the number of units, the additional units. I've heard 42 and 48 used.
So I'm sorry, who's speaking?
This is Lee Jordan from the public, 90 Pilgrim Lane, Drexel Hill.
Great. So Ms. Jordan, I understand we're different circumstances. I appreciate the question. Let's see how the presentation goes. And if you're unclear at the end, you can certainly ask that question, but I'm sure it'll be clear from their presentation. All right.
Thank you.
So, Mr. D'Amico, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Musso. May it please the board, my name is Mark D'Amico. I'm an attorney with an office at 109 Chesley Drive, Media, PA 19063. I'm here tonight representing MCBH Drexeline Plaza LP, the owner of the Drexeline Shopping Center. And with me tonight is my co-counsel, Ken Schuster, and also with me is my partner, Finton McHugh.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening.
As you know, we were previously before this board and obtained variances and other relief through a June 28, 2018 decision. that was based on a prior version of the plan. Part of the settlement of an appeal in the Court of Common Pleas, the board's decision was affirmed with a series of conditions, including a reduction in impervious area and some improvements to the walking trail. And this plan that we're here to present before you this evening is consistent with those conditions. I know there's some new members of the board, so just to
All new members of the board, everyone's new since 2018,
Yeah.
so.
yes, understood. So we did get relief from the zoning hearing board to use the property for apartments and for self-storage facility, and they were the two use variances. We also received height relief for the apartment building and the self-storage building. We received relief for impervious coverage not to exceed 70%. And we received a special exception for some variation of the parking calculation due to the fact that we are adjacent to the SEPTA trolley stop. All that relief is, we're not changing any of that relief. We'll go into some detail through our witnesses. So we've revised the plan that's part of the exhibit package. The plan is substantially similar. There are many improvements that we'll go through with our witnesses. We're eliminating some commercial space and increasing the number of apartments from 142 apartments to 190 apartments. So that's an additional 48 apartment units. In our application, we did inadvertently reference 42 apartments, although the plan that was attached to the application correctly identified the total number of apartments on this zoning plan as 190. So we're going to have several witnesses. Our first witness tonight will be Dave Bramble of MCB Real Estate, who will give a brief introduction on the history and the vision of the developer's vision for the redevelopment. Then we have Dan Shabell, also of MCB. He's going to testify about some of the changes to the plan and the need for the additional apartments. We're going to have our civil engineer, John Hornick of Bowler Engineering, who testified at the 2018 zoning hearing board to explain some of the changes and improvements that have been made to the plan since the 2018 plan. Our traffic engineer, Matt Hammond of Traffic Planning and Design, will explain how the new plan will generate less traffic than the 2018 plan. Again, Mr. Hammond testified in 2018. We'll then have our urban planner economist, Gina Lavery, testify about the positive fiscal impact of the township and the school district. And we'll also have Lisa Price, who's a market research strategist, testify about the breakdown of these apartments. And finally, our architect, Frank Russo, will explain how the apartments will be consistent thematically and architecturally with the rest of the proposed development. So I won't repeat what Mr. Amuso said. I think you correctly summarized our position here. We're looking for just reaffirmation of the prior variances, and if needed, an extension or a reaffirmation of the use variance with respect to the apartments at 190. One more thing I'll just mention that I forwarded to Mr. Amuso the 2018 transcript, and that has a lot of testimony, and to try to be sensitive to the board's time, we're not proposing to retestify as to all those other use variances and dimensional variances, but instead we would ask the board to accept the transcript of the 2018 hearing as evidence.
So we are willing to do that. And we have in fact got a whole list of exhibits in an exhibit packet. So at some point you want to enter all those into evidence. I mean, I guess after your witnesses testify, just don't forget to do that. But we're happy to
Yes.
accept the transcript and record of the 2018 application, so as not to make tonight last longer than it needs to. Before you get started, I do want to mark 3 exhibits for the zoning hearing board. That'd be zoning hearing board exhibit 1, your current application, Zoning Hearing Board 2, the proof of the publication of the public notice for tonight's special meeting, and Zoning Hearing Board Exhibit 3, the series of photos showing that the property was properly posted with notice for tonight's meeting. And with those 3 exhibits entered in for the Zoning Hearing Board, you may now present your first witness.
Thank you. And before I do one, just a technical point here, Mr. Musso, Dan Shabell of MCB has the exhibit package on his computer, and it would be much more efficient if he's able to go through the exhibits. Are you able to give him control? so that he
My
can do that?
understanding is that people can be able to share their screen. See if he can share his screen. Where is he? I don't know. Yeah, you don't, so he can share a screen.
All right, excellent. Thank you. All right. And I guess one more thing, Mr. Musso, is it better that all of our witnesses be sworn at once, or is it better that you swear them one at a
No,
time?
let's swear them in one at a time. It's confusing, I think, online, so. Just call each witness, swear them in, ask your questions. Township can ask their questions. And then I think it makes more sense for you to go, if the public has questions, they can just kind of ask them at the end so that it's just easier that way online.
Okay, thank you. All right. Our first witness is David Bramble.
Please swear in the witness.
Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, Mr. Bramble, can you explain what your role is at MCB Real Estate and explain a little bit about MCB Real Estate?
Sure. So as you mentioned, my name is David Bramble. I'm the managing partner and co-founder of MCB Real Estate. You asked a little bit about us. We are a Baltimore-based real estate investment and development firm. We own and operate about 9 million square feet of real estate across multiple asset types, and we do development and redevelopment projects up and down 95.
Okay, thank you. Could you tell us a little bit about MCB's history with the Drexel Line Shopping Center?
Sure, we have a long history with this project. We acquired it back in March of 2016, and then I'm sure as the record reflects, we went through a zoning board process and appeals and so forth as we discussed. But we have been working on this project for a very long time, trying to pull together a plan that worked for the community, worked for the tenants, and that we could execute financially.
Okay, thank you. And could you tell us about your vision for the redevelopment?
Thank you for asking us. So we recognize that this site is one of 2 significant or major commercial areas affecting the township. And we think that this site requires a complete redesign that better serves the public. And that means both the users of the center in terms of residents, of shoppers, of tenancies. We look at the location as a multimodal location because you've got links with SEPTA, with bus and rail, vehicle pedestrian access. And what we're really looking to do here is a statement transaction where we are building an amazing property with the goal of enhancing the economic vitality of Upper Darby and increasing the revenue and property value and adding employment opportunities. So this is really a major mixed-use development with significant economic impact. Will be over $100 million of invested capital in bringing this deal to fruition.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bramble. Mr. Musso, that's all the questions I have for this witness. Mr. Bramble, really, his purpose was just to give a brief introduction.
Okay, does the township have any questions of this witness?
Mr. Musso, again, this is Sean Kilkenny. I'm here on behalf of the township in support of this application. Just wanted to ask Mr. Bramble one question, if that's okay. Mr. Bramble, you talked about increased employment opportunities. Obviously, economic development is a priority of the mayor. Are you actively going to recruit and try to bring Upper Darby residents into employment in the new Drexel line?
Yes, I mean, we do projects like this in various jurisdictions, and that's one of our focuses, to make sure that the residents who live there have opportunities. Thankfully, in this instance, we're taking an existing ShopRite, which was, it was only about 30,000 feet of selling area, and we're creating a 72,000 square foot state-of-the-art grocery store, which will absolutely have additional employment opportunities. And we're pretty excited about that. In addition, and there'll be later testimony about the job creation and other opportunities at the project.
Thank you. That's my only question.
Thank you, Mr. Kilkenny. Any of the board members have questions for Mr. Bramble?
No, I don't have any.
Okay.
None here.
None.
Ms. Wilson?
No.
Or Ms. Williams?
No.
Okay. All right. Mr. D'Amico, call your next witness, please.
Yes, next witness is Dan Shabel.
Please swear him in.
If you could raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Can you just state your name for the record, please?
Daniel Shabel.
Can you spell that last name?
S as in Sam, H-A, B as in boy, E as in Edward, L as in Larry.
Okay, Mr. Shabel, would you give your occupation and your place of employment?
I'm the vice president and portfolio manager for MCB. I'm responsible for the operation and redevelopment of the Drexel Line Town Center. And I work for MCB and the affiliates that own the shopping center.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Shabel, you've got up on the screen there what's been marked as Exhibit A3. Would you identify that plan?
This is the current plan that we are submitting for, we're applying for some relief with regard to the current plan for Drexel Line Town Center.
Okay. And using Exhibit A3, would you walk the board through the proposed uses?
Sure. Going from west to east on the corner of State Road and Route 1 is a Wawa. We believe that there should be some charging stations in there. There's an existing PNC Bank in which we will transform the drive-through to make it less of a difficult maneuver in order to get through to it. Further south below that is self-storage, approximately 120,000 feet, 6 stories. As you move east, on the front, there is facing State Road, approximately 14,000 feet of single-story retail. And behind that is the new ShopRite grocery, approximately 71,000 feet, which will have a cafe inside of it. In addition, we have 6,400 feet of retail here and 190 apartments, a multifamily dwelling.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shabel. Since 2018, the plans have been revised to eliminate approximately 100,000 square feet of commercial space, including 70,000 square feet of office space from the development. Can you explain why those changes have been made and why the additional apartments are now proposed?
We were approached by the township in an effort to make the plan more environmentally friendly, and we received some excellent feedback from the mayor and CAO and the township engineer and it primarily we were what they had asked for is would we be able to create some additional green space, reduce some of the impervious. As you can see, there were parking spaces along the creek. The building that exists there now was fairly close to the creek. We had a 5-foot wide walking path. And so in order to achieve the goals that were set out by the township, we made some changes to the plan where we eliminated the parking spaces. And let me back up. Sorry. And one of the major items is we had 70,000 feet of office space, and so we reduced that to the 14,000 feet of retail. That is not necessarily due to environmental conditions. It's primarily because of economic conditions due to COVID. But just kind of in going through the changes that were made, we were able to eliminate these parking spaces and replace it with green space. By doing so, we reduced the impervious. Initially, we had approvals. We received relief to go to 80% impervious. After the appeal, we agreed to 75%. And after the additional changes, we've been able to reduce the impervious to between 73 and 74%. In addition, it was requested that we widen the walking path that we had previously agreed to from 5 feet to 8 feet so that it could accommodate some bicycles. During our preliminary approvals, it was requested that we put some charging stations, which we will figure out a place to put some additional charging stations. In addition, we were also requested to improve the walkability of the plan, which our architect will go into more in depth. But basically, by making a lot of the changes that were requested, we have made the entire plan walkable now, including the kind of focusing on the walking path and bringing everything so that everything is connected. And then by moving the existing building, we moved the apartments off of the stream, creating more of a buffer. And we were able to refocus the sight line of the apartments on the stream. So we believe that this plan actually is really much cleaner. It's and it's a better plan. It's more environmentally friendly, but it's just, we also think that it works better as a plan.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shabell. So you were moving your cursor around, but the 70,000 square feet of the office, most of it, you were moving your cursor. So that area was above the shop, right?
There were 3 floors and it was approximately 70,000 feet. However, prior to COVID, we were attempting to lease it. And unfortunately, we're kind of the hole in the donut where there's definitely a void here, but it's often covered by other markets. And we were not able to secure an anchor tenant. Once COVID hit, the office became virtually impossible to lease. There are in Delaware County, the available space went from 11 to 12% up to 18%, and it's not a viable alternative in terms of being able to secure a tenant. So we had to find a way to replace that revenue, and the additional apartments was a way that we found in order to try and replace that revenue.
Okay. Mr. Shaybell, you had a chance to review the segmentation study that our consultant Lisa Price has prepared?
I have.
And although Ms. Price will testify more specifically about the study a little later on here, can you explain some of the reasons why apartments would be desired and necessary for this development?
Well, first, it's this is a mixed use plan. Apartments are part of a mixed use plan. You know, it's almost a cliche now: work, live, play, work, live, shop. So this is part of one of the components. In addition, there's been a large pent up demand in Upper Darby. I don't believe there's been much, if any, new product for maybe decades. The apartments, as I touched on briefly, are necessary in order to make this project financially viable with the loss of the office building. This kind of project, which will eventually cost almost $100 million, needs to be financeable by institutional investors and lenders. And without the office tenancy, the project requires additional income in order to make it possible to redevelop the property. Apartments are a reliable source of income. They're, from the market perspective, they're much more in demand. And as you will hear from Ms. Price, there is actually an increased demand in suburban apartments as people tend to leave the city. These apartments are attractive to young professionals and empty nesters. They were originally attracted to the city because of theaters, restaurants, museums, which they no longer have the ability to frequent. The cost of housing in the city is far more expensive than it is out in the suburbs. There's a city wage tax. And in addition, for example, this particular project has access to the trolley, which is public transportation and attractive to many types, especially younger people, younger professionals who maybe they have college loans and they don't really want to have a car if they don't have to. So it's really an advantageous positioning and makes sense for additional apartments.
Okay, thank you. Now looking at the existing conditions plan, which we've labeled as Exhibit A1B, can you explain how the property suffers from hardships that make it financially infeasible to continue with the status quo?
Sure. As everybody, who knows this project, it's several different, it's 4 parcels, but each part of each component of the project is almost a separate piece. They don't work together. This area is one large piece of blacktop. It's about 90 to 93% impervious. The ShopRite is facing increased competition. The current facility is very old, and it needs to be improved, wider aisles, brighter, et cetera, to stay competitive. The parking is poorly designed. It's all on the outskirts of the property. There's no shared parking. Therefore, you need more parking, but it's less efficient. The ingress egress is challenged. There's no access from Route 1, which there will be when the Wawa goes in. Right now, there's ingress egress. It's almost a full action ingress egress. You can make a right in, right out, left in, left out. This intersection right here backs up. The stacking is just horrible. So we have agreed, in order to secure our PennDOT HOP, to just make this a right in, right out. In addition, the circulation, anybody who's gone in near the PNC knows that it's rather circuitous and it's difficult to get in and out of the center. And then the buildings are just, poorly planned out. Where it says Crozier here, this used to be an outdoor mall. They put an atrium in it. It's highly inefficient. Most of these buildings are antiquated. They're poorly designed and really obsolete from a modern perspective.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shabelle. Are the proposed features on the new plan necessary to allow the reasonable development and use of the property?
Yes.
Would the proposed development have any adverse effect on the health, safety, or the general welfare of the residents of Upper Darby Township?
No, quite the contrary. We think it'll be a vast improvement as to what's there now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shabelle. Mr. Musso, that is all the questions I have for this witness.
Thank you, Mr. Hamico. Mr. Kilkenny, does the township have any questions of this witness?
Sure, just real brief. Mr. Shabelle, you were involved in the June 28th, 2018 zoning hearing board application.
That's correct.
And so this application this evening only differs from that application per greater environmental sensitivity?
Well, that, and we're seeking obviously the additional apartments, but I mean, we listened to the township and what they were looking for, and so we made improvements in terms of environmental sensitivity.
But none of the, although there may have been an increased amount of apartments, none of the uses that you received relief for 2.5 years ago have changed from the uses you have applied for this evening.
That is correct, sir.
Okay, that's all the questions that I have.
Thank you, Mr. Kilkenny. Do any board members have questions for Mr. Shabelle?
I do.
Go ahead, Ms. Wilson.
Okay, I'm not sure who else is going to be testifying, so I'm not sure if some of my questions might be answered by someone else. If they are, just tell me and I'll wait. The original plan had parking underneath the ShopRite office building, and there was going to be a stormwater management system down there. What is going to be in place of that now?
Well, our engineer, John Hornick, can testify as to the stormwater management, but we do have stormwater management. We're taking the impervious from 92, 93 down to 73, 74%. So there are numerous, various areas that we are going to install stormwater management.
Okay. And will he also talk about the mitigation for the floodplain?
Correct.
Okay.
We have to secure permits from not only DEP for what they call a Joint 105, but we also have to obtain approvals from FEMA. But Mr. Hornick will be able to answer in more detail.
Okay. The settlement to the appeal, in section B, it stated that the path along the creek would be pervious materials. When I looked at the plan, it looked like that was just the part near Wawa, but it's really not clear about the rest.
The settlement actually only the area near Wawa is supposed to be pervious. Everything else can be impervious. The pervious pavement, it's kind of the bane of people's existence who have to maintain this. It doesn't stay pervious very long, and so it's really, and a lot of times you don't even get credit for it from DEP, but the part of the settlement was just from the area where the Wawa is to originally we were going to go to the underneath the bridge, but after conferring with the township, we've amended where the path is going to go. So it's not going to go to the bridge.
Okay. And in the original plan, there were a lot of amenities that were associated with the supermarket, like a pharmacy, a community center that was going to be used for cooking classes, but could be used by the community, a casual dining restaurant. How much of that is being retained?
Well, I know that there's going to be a cafe, and so the details of that are still in the design phase for the supermarket. I believe that they're going to have a community a community room, but again, the design, they're still in the design phase. But, that's, I think, the plan.
Okay. The apartments, are they going to be handicapped accessible?
I will defer to our engineer on that, but I believe they will have to be, in order to obtain a certificate of occupancy, they will have to be ADA compliant.
Okay, and there's an elevator that comes up from the garage, or? I couldn't read the plan.
I believe there is. I'll defer
Okay.
to our architect, but I believe that there must be an elevator that comes from the garage.
Okay. And now the biggie. Originally, there were going to be 70 apartments, and 22 of them were 2-bedroom. And I think it was Ms. Price estimated that there were only going to be 10 kids max going to the schools. So you're up to 190 now. How many of those are 2-bedroom?
Well, just not to split hairs, but I believe it was 142 apartments that was approved total. So so we're asking for an additional 48. I'm going to defer to Ms. Price, but just the overarching answer is the world has changed and people are working from home. So larger units are in more demand, and they're not necessarily in demand by people who have children. They're in demand from people, empty nesters and young professionals who are working at home. So they need a little more space to spread out. And with mortgage rates as low as they are, typically people who are going to have children that enter the school system, it's a lot more economical for them to go and buy a house. So we don't anticipate a large number of children actually being in the apartments.
Okay, that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Ms. Wilson. Any other board member have a question for Mr. Shable?
No.
I do not.
All right. Either side have any more questions for Mr. Shable based on those questions?
No.
All right, Mr. D'Amico, call your next witness.
John Hornick.
Please swear him in.
You could raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, can I have your name, please?
My name is John Hornick, Hornick.
Okay, Mr. Hornick, Exhibit A2 is your CV or your resume that's been submitted to the board. That's something that you submitted to us?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and you were recognized as an expert in civil engineering before this board at the 2018 hearing at which you testified. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Musso, I'm going to ask that Mr. Hornick be accepted again as an expert.
Absent any objection from the township, he'll be accepted.
No objection.
Thank you. He's accepted.
Thank you. Mr. Hornick, did you prepare the new site plan underlying this application, which is dated June 6, 2019, as last revised October 2027, 2020?
Yes, sir.
All right, and that's the plan that Mr. Shabel has up there, and that's been marked Exhibit A3. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And did your firm and you also prepare the prior plan from 2018, which was the subject of that zoning hearing board application?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so Exhibit A3 is the new site plan, and that's actually what we're looking at as the overall plan. And then we've got pages that are broken down east and west. And we've also submitted A4, which is the new landscape plan. Bowler Engineering prepared that plan?
Yes.
Okay, and Exhibit A5 is the prior plan from 2018. Is that correct?
Scroll down a little farther, Dan. Yes, that is correct.
All right. All right, comparing the 2018 plan to the new 2020 plan and using the landscape plan. Can you explain how the plan has been improved?
Yes, it's been improved in several ways. For one, and Dan had mentioned this in his testimony, but I'll repeat it. The trail that runs along Darby Creek in the old zoning plan was shown at 5 feet wide. In this new plan, we've been able to widen it to 8 feet wide. This was, again, with good feedback from the township. It will promote more usage, we believe. And then in the future, as this trail hopefully gets extended along other areas of Darby Creek, it could facilitate, bike usage in addition to just walking. To be able to do that, we've, as part of amending the plan for the apartments, that allowed us to sort of pull back the edge of the impervious surfaces along the creek, which gave us some more green space along the creek, gave us some more room to enable us to widen that trail. So the other added bonus is that we've been able to provide more green space to this plan compared to the 2018 plan. And the bulk of that increase in green space occurs along the creek. So that not only provides more green space, but it provides a water quality bonus from a stormwater management perspective, because that area right along the creek drains into the creek. So we have more green area that actually drains directly into the creek now compared to before. Just for a little bit of comparison, the site today is approximately 92% impervious coverage. In the 2018 plan, the site received a variance to allow us to reduce the impervious percentage from 92 to 80%. That number was subsequently lowered in the subsequent court order stipulation to 75%. This plan further reduces it to about 74%. But again, then the bulk of that green space gain is along the creek itself. Someone mentioned stormwater earlier. So this plan has actually been designed, and it has been submitted and been before council for land development, preliminary land development. So it has a stormwater management system designed. It is designed to comply with township ordinance as well as the new NPDES requirements. So there is a stormwater management design. Today, the site has no stormwater management at all. And as part of the redevelopment, it will be brought up to current code with respect to stormwater management. So again, that was obviously in 2018, that was foreseen because that's the current regulations, but at this point in time, we've designed it. So that's where we stand now. And as part of this change, as Dan had mentioned, we were able to expand the apartments and reorient them to add some units and get them in closer proximity to the creek for both better views along the creek, but also another benefit is the pedestrian connectivity. In this plan, the apartment units are brought closer to the trolley station, and we're able to provide a more direct pedestrian connection from the apartments to the trolley station as compared to the previous plan.
Okay, and then those additional apartments that you just mentioned, Mr. Hornick, they're on the right side of the plan towards the bottom?
Yes, they would be sort of the base of the L shape, or where the added apartments would be.
Okay, that's where Mr. Shaybell is moving the cursor around there.
Yes.
Okay, and would you explain the red and the blue on the plan that's now in front of you?
Sure. So what's highlighted in red are what I would say standard sidewalks. We are providing extensive sidewalk connectivity throughout the entire shopping center, from State Road from building to building throughout the site, and also to connect into not only the SEPTA station, but also to the Drexel Line Apartments next door. Today, people can walk from the Drexel Line Apartments into the property, but there's really not proper sidewalk paths. You pretty much just negotiate the parking lots. But in this plan, there will be designated sidewalks throughout. And what is shown in blue are the enhanced trail areas. So these are areas that are 8 feet wide, made of either asphalt, or in the area down by the Wawa would be a porous asphalt material, which allows rainwater to sort of drain right through the asphalt. And the red areas, which would be more conventional sidewalk, would be concrete.
Okay, I'm sorry. So you said the area in blue is what everybody's commonly referring to as the walking trail.
That's correct. And a change in this plan is, and as Dan had mentioned, we're no longer extending it down to the bridge overpass at Route 1. In some discussions with the township, it was considered preferable to be able to bring the trail up to the traffic signal intersection at Township Line and State Road, where there are crossings already today at a signalized intersection. So if in the future any component of the trail is extended to, I'll call it the north or northwest side of Township Line Road, that's probably a more practical, feasible way to connect rather than try to tuck it underneath, the Township Line Road overpass and bring the trail right down next to the creek. So that was deemed less desirable than trying to utilize the intersection for that. So we made that change.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Hornick. So Mr. Shaybell just testified, and would you concur that this new plan does not require any relief in addition to the zoning relief that was granted by this board in 2018?
Correct.
Okay, and have we been able to eliminate any of the relief that was granted?
So one piece of relief that was granted was a 0 lot line setback, where when previously the apartments were abutting the existing building that was shown to remain, and there was going to be a structure connecting the two that would have spanned a lot line. So in this plan, that is no longer necessary. So we would not, now the lot lines can be drawn up without a structure, impinging on such a setback.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hornick. And can you briefly recap how the proposed development would improve upon the existing conditions?
Sure. So again, in the existing conditions, the site's approximately 92% impervious coverage. There's no stormwater management today. There's minimal to no landscaping today. There you might be able to count on one hand the number of trees that are on in the parking lot today. And then pedestrian connectivity is sort of scattered. Again, there's not much in the way of sidewalk connections. You're pretty much negotiating random parking lot areas. And as Dan had said, it's really a conglomeration of independent developments that have been connected over time. So in the redevelopment would make it much more of a unified layout. We would have sidewalk connectivity, ADA improvements, stormwater management improvements where none exist today, a much more significant increase in green space, improved circulation for vehicles as well, and then a significant increase in landscaping, where there is maybe, 4 trees or something like that today. We would now be looking at over 200 trees in the proposed condition.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Hornick. And you're now looking at Exhibit A4. Is that the overall landscape plan proposed for the shopping center?
Yes.
Okay. So, and you've got a table of all the trees and shrubs, but your testimony is that there's Well, I'll let you testify. How many trees and shrubs are we talking about now?
Right, so we're talking about over 240 trees. We have over 1,000 shrubs. And then in addition to that, there are things like ground cover plantings and ornamental grasses in excess of 800.
Okay, thank you. Are you familiar with the standards for variances set forth in the Upper Darby Township zoning code at section 1200J?
Yes.
Okay, and based on your testimony from 2018 and tonight, you have an opinion as to whether those standards are met where relevant?
Yes, I believe that this plan does meet those standards where relevant.
Okay. And as a licensed professional engineer, do you have an opinion as to whether or not the proposed development would have any adverse effect on the health, safety, or the general welfare of the residents of Upper Darby Township?
Yes, in fact, I believe that this redevelopment would be an improvement to those aspects with respect to the township and the residents. Again, stormwater management, green space, water quality, the trail along the creek are all benefits.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hornick. Mr. Musso, that's all the questions I have for Mr. Hornick.
Thank you, Mr. D'Amico. Does the township have any questions for Mr. Hornick?
Briefly, Mr. Musso. Mr. Hornick, good evening. These improvements from the 2018 to 2020 plan, how do they come about? Who were they suggested by?
So the improvements to the apartments and bringing them closer proximity to the creek were suggested by the mayor and the CEO. We had some very productive discussions with them, and as well as Mr. Galante, the township engineer. And we kind of collaborated on a solution that we think is better in all ways.
How about the decrease in impervious surface, the walkability, and the multimodal aspects of this development?
Sure. So a wish to widen the trail was something that was expressed by both the township and by the county as well, by the Delaware County Planning Department. They expressed the wish to widen that trail to be able to accommodate bikes as well as pedestrians, and we did the best we could to try to accommodate that.
Okay, no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kilkenny. Any board members have questions of Mr. Hornick?
I do.
Yep.
All right, so is it all right if we go with Ms. Wilson and then Ms. McPherson? Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right, Ms. Wilson, go ahead.
Okay, specifically, the area that's the creek side of what's now parcel 6, it has a tendency to flood really badly. And that's where the Wawa is going to be. What are you doing? And it's a zone AE, flood zone AE, which is high risk. Specifically, what are you doing to mitigate flood risk there?
Yes, so we are pursuing something that's called a map revision with FEMA. So we are doing it's a calculation and analysis that's known as a flood study. So specifically where the Wawa is and the storage building, we're going to be modifying the grade of those parts of the site to actually raise them up where the asphalt and buildings will be, to get those buildings at least 1.5 feet above the 100-year flood elevation. So currently today, the parking lot back in the area you're talking about, that is under the 100-year flood elevation. So when there's a 100-year flood, that parking lot's underwater. Or sometimes less than a 100-year flood. It's underwater. It happens frequently enough that it's, it doesn't take a 100-year flood. So we will be raising the grade in the what I'll call the improved areas. And as part of that, we are analyzing the flood stage elevations of the creek with respect to our grading. And that will require sort of a remapping of the edge of it along the creek there. And we have to get that approval from FEMA.
Okay.
Any other questions, Ms. Wilson?
No.
I have
Chair,
a
please.
follow-up to that question. Actually, that's what I was going to ask as well. And when you say you're raising the elevation and, obviously you're doing the flood study, are you looking at any of the adjacent properties and how that will affect their floodplain?
Yes, as a part of this, we have to basically analyze, the way you analyze the stream is by cross sections.
Yep.
So you start at whatever, from upper end to lower end, FEMA tells us where they want it. And we have to take that cross section all the way across to the other side of the creek as well. So
Well, I'm talking about downstream of this property.
yes,
It's
so
not just
right,
the-
we actually modeled the entire creek system. And so what we're doing is the way we're grading this, and the amount of green space we're adding we're demonstrating that the creek level will not rise. It will maintain at the elevation that it currently is based on the 100-year flood zone models, which again, FEMA has a say in how we do that. So we're adjusting the grades inside our property to get higher than that, but we're not going to affect the stream elevation itself, or the creek elevation itself.
So are you providing any, storage areas within that green space to allow for additional floodplain storage, or?
We're not providing particularly like pools or something like that. The way it works is that it's a function of the grades and the cross section as to how it works and the velocity of the stream. So with the green areas that we are doing and the way that the proposed grading will be done, that's really what affects the elevation of the floodwaters. And then combined with the stormwater management we're doing on site, the contributing runoff from our site will be reduced fairly significantly compared to what it is today.
And what are the stormwater measures that you have? Are they infiltration, green roofs?
Yeah, so we have 2 underground basins. One is on the north side of the ShopRite building where Dan's hovering the cursor. That is proposed to be an infiltration basin. So that will take water and it will force it to infiltrate into the ground. We have a second underground basin. It's it's under the parking lot in sort of the southeast corner of the ShopRite. That will be a detention basin, which will cut down the release rates substantially. And then over by the Wawa, to the west of the fuel area, we will have what's called a rain garden. So runoff that comes from the gas station area does not go directly into pipes. It has to sheet flow off the pavement into an area that will have an engineered soil medium with plantings, that any runoff first has to go into there, which the biomass essentially treats it and cleans it before it can go into any kind of conveyance piping.
So the the one system you said is in the parking lot, not in front of the apartment complex area. So that would be the closest to the stream. Is that just detention then, if you said it's rate controls?
Correct. So the underground basin, the second one that I had mentioned, it's basically in the parking area that's between ShopRite and the apartments. It's closer to the ShopRite. But yes, that one, in that part of the site, we don't have favorable infiltration ability. So the goal with that one is cut down the release rates.
Okay. Yep, that's my only questions.
Great, thanks. Any other board members have questions? All right, any further questions from the applicant or the township based on those board member questions?
Just, real briefly, Mr. Musso. Mr. Hornick, besides your testimony tonight related to the stream and how it relates to flooding and the 100-year flood and the FEMA maps, this, of course, would have to be reviewed by county and state authorities and approved by them before you can move forward in this project as well, correct?
That is correct.
And can you briefly explain to the public and the members of the zoning hearing board who else would review and approve this project?
So we have to get an NPDES permit That is being reviewed both by the County Conservation District and by DEP. This project requires something that's known as an individual permit. So the stormwater is being reviewed by DEP themselves, and the erosion control aspect by Delaware County Conservation District. We have FEMA involved reviewing the flood zone aspect of it. DEP is involved because this project requires a joint 105 that's sort of as a result of the grading that we are doing along the creek. So we have a joint 105 from DEP as well. And we have sewer planning, which is DEP, along with the township, land development from the township. And then, Matt Hammond will get into it more if needed, but we have an HOP, of course, from PennDOT.
So if the County Conservation District, DEP, or Mr. Galante were not satisfied with this, one of the conditions of the preliminary approval is that you must comply and gain approval from all these bodies. Is that correct?
Yes.
So before this plan finally moves forward, not only will Upper Darby sign off on this, but both the state and the federal government, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, that's my only questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gilkenny. Mr. Demico, any further questions for your witness based on any of these questions?
No.
All right, please call your next witness.
Okay, my next witness is Matthew Hammond.
Please swear the witness in.
You could raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, Mr. Hammond, would you tell the board your occupation and your place of employment?
Sure. I am a licensed professional engineer specializing in traffic and transportation. I am the Executive Vice President of Traffic Planning and Design, Inc.
And what's shown on the screen there has been marked Exhibit A8. Is that your resume or CV?
Yes, sir.
And you were recognized as an expert in traffic engineering before the zoning hearing board in 2018 at the hearing for this project. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Mr. Musso, I'm going to ask that Mr. Hammond be accepted as an expert in the field of traffic engineering.
Any objection from the township?
No.
He's so accepted.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hammond, has this project received a highway occupancy permit from PennDOT?
Yes, it has. We made an application to PennDOT initially back in 2018 for a highway occupancy permit associated with the roadway improvements that were outlined in an approved traffic study from November 2017, as well as the improvements being proposed to the access points existing and proposed. That permit was ultimately issued by the Department of Transportation on August 31st, 2020.
Okay. As compared to the existing traffic conditions, can you briefly explain how the proposed redevelopment would improve upon the existing traffic conditions?
Sure. So as I had mentioned, this has been a long process, at least not only from the land development side, but also from the traffic and transportation side. We worked very closely with the township and PennDOT over the past 3.5 years to come up with a plan that I think all parties agree is a significant improvement over the existing access and traffic flow. The original traffic study was completed in August of 2017. It was revised in November of 2017. Being that State Road, Township Line Road, and Route 1 are all state-owned and maintained roadways, we needed to submit that information to PennDOT for approval. And that traffic study, again, was submitted in November of 2017. It was approved by PennDOT after some modifications and coordination in December of 2017. What the traffic study basically showed was the traffic that was generated by the uses at the time. I believe the Exhibit A5 outlines those uses that were contained within the November 2017 traffic study. As everyone is familiar, the site currently contains one access point on Route 1, which is an exit only. It contains 4 access points on State Road. I believe Mr. Shabelle had kind of outlined where those access points exist. There's a full access driveway very close to State Road to the intersection of Township Line. There's a right-in only driveway, then followed by a full access signalized driveway and another full access unsignalized driveway closest to the existing residential apartments adjacent to the property. Also, as everyone is familiar, when you get interior to the site, it's basically a free-for-all from a traffic perspective. There's very little definition in terms of the drive aisles and the on-site circulation, especially over in the area of the existing residential apartments where you enter and it's a very large sea of asphalt with no apparent traffic control. So in working with PennDOT and the township, we have proposed a significant package of roadway improvements to offset the impact the redevelopment would have. Those improvements include converting or providing for a right-in only driveway directly off of Route 1, which would also include a small deceleration lane, and then the extension of the existing right turn lane from Route 1 onto State Road. And then moving towards the east, obviously, as I mentioned, the 2 access points, we're combining those 2 access points that exist today, the full access driveway and the right in, right out, combining them into one right in, right out driveway. I'll also have, I believe, 175-foot deceleration lane serving that driveway. And when I say deceleration lane, I mean right turn lane into the driveway. Again, moving eastward, we are looking to improve and enhance the existing full access signalized driveway to provide for 2 exiting lanes and 2 entering lanes, as well as a brand new traffic signal with full modernization. All of the quote unquote latest and greatest available from an equipment standpoint. And that driveway would be served by a 150-foot deceleration lane along State Road. And then finally, moving furthest east, that driveway, which exists today as a full access driveway, would be better defined, especially internally, where there'd be a driveway throat provided. We'd also be looking to provide a 125, I believe, foot deceleration lane. One thing that we would be doing there is actually eliminating the lefts out of that driveway with a physical median within the driveway, so that anyone wanting to make a left to go back towards Township Line Road would be forced to do so at the brand new traffic signal that we're providing. We're also looking to provide some restriping and modifications along State Road to increase and provide for dedicated left turn lanes into the easternmost driveway and a signalized driveway, and then increase the stacking area for the left on State Road onto southbound Route 1 by approximately 100 feet. In addition, on the southbound approach of Township Line Road to the signalized intersection, we are looking to significantly increase the stacking area of that left turn lane. I believe today that left turn lane is approximately 150 feet, and we are looking to provide a 370-foot long left turn lane for people coming down Township Line Road and turning left towards the shopping center. We are also providing significant traffic signal equipment upgrades at the intersection of Township Line Road and State Road, and in conjunction with the pedestrian improvements that were discussed by Mr. Hornick, we're also collaborated with Mr. Hornick and with SEPTA to provide for bus stops, enhanced bus stops, obviously the sidewalks along the frontage, and all new ADA ramps, compliant ramps along the frontage to the tune of about, I believe it's 13 ADA ramps that are being proposed along the frontage. That is obviously all the work that we're doing surrounding the perimeter of the property, but obviously something that's very important in the improvements that are being made internal to the property, and that's obviously can be seen from Exhibit A5, where each driveway is a much better defined throat. There is a parallel grid system internal to the property, which allows for efficient vehicular flow. I believe there was also some discussion, I don't remember if it was Mr. Hornick or Mr. Shaybell, that talked about the PNC Bank and the relocation of the drive-through. Again, just better overall vehicular circulation, which not only is more efficient, but is obviously more safe, especially due to the fact that we will be able to provide for traffic control devices, i.e. stop signs, pavement markings, crosswalks, and the like. So there's a pretty significant improvement package that's being proposed along not only the frontage, but interior to the site.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hammond. And have you prepared an analysis that compares the trip generation for the latest redevelopment 2020 plan to the one that was part of the originally approved zoning plan in 2018?
Yes, we have, and it's important to note that all of those roadway improvements and access improvements I just described were based on the uses contained within the November 2017 traffic study, which was approved by PennDOT. That traffic study and the traffic generated by that traffic study and those uses was the basis for the highway occupancy permit and the roadway improvements that were ultimately designed and approved by PennDOT in August of this year.
Mr. D'Amico there? You might have-
I think he left.
Lost the connection.
We get bumped out here.
There
You
you go.
back? Good, okay.
So I'm sorry, Matt, did you answer the last question about how the traffic compares?
The last question you posed to me, Mr. D'Amico, was whether or not we had completed an analysis with respect to the latest plan.
Okay, and did you answer that while I was cut off?
I did. My answer was
Okay.
yes.
All right, and how does that explain how these changes internally with the extra apartments and the elimination of the office space impacts, if any, the HOP permit?
Sure, and Mr. Shaybell, if you want to go to that specific exhibit, but we did prepare a memorandum dated November 11th, 2020, entitled Trip Generation Comparison. And what we did within that memorandum was compare the traffic and uses contained within the November 2017 traffic study to the uses proposed as part of the subject of this application, what I refer to as Plan M3. And what you'll see, and if you could go down to the next page, Mr. Shaybell, and one more, I'm sorry. You will see that under results summary, the second paragraph, that when we compare the trips generated or calculated as part of the November 2017 study, which again was the basis for our design and for our ultimate approval, that we generate approximately 82 less trips in the AM peak hour, 111 less trips in the PM, and 114 less trips during the Saturday midday peak hour. So essentially what that means is the new plan generates less traffic, and therefore we have quote unquote over-designed the roadway improvements and access improvements as permitted by PennDOT in August of this year.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hammond. As a licensed engineer and based on the studies which you've made, you have an opinion as to whether or not the proposed development would have any adverse effect on the health, safety, or general welfare of the residents of Upper Darby Township?
I do, and as similar as to testified to the other witnesses, I believe that this will not have a detrimental impact, and in fact will be a significant improvement, not only for the pedestrians, but the residents and vehicles and motorists traveling through this area.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hammond. Mr. Musso, that's all the questions I have for Mr. Hammond.
Thank you. Mr. Kilkenny, do you have any questions for Mr. Hammond?
Yes, Mr. Musso. Mr. Hammond, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Kilkenny.
These enhancements from the 2018 plan to the 2020 plan, how did they come about?
So I was not necessarily involved in all the discussions that occurred between MCB and the various parties as well as township staff. But it's my understanding there was significant coordination between township and the applicant with respect to the enhancements and what could be done to make the plan better, so to speak.
So in listening to your testimony, I heard that you've already obtained state or PennDOT approval. That's correct? For the highway occupancy permit. And so when that occurs, PennDOT traffic engineers do a thorough review and sign off on any highway occupancy permit. Is that the process?
That is the process. And to be brief, it's a three-step process, though I like to call it. The first step is the introduction to the project, flush out any issues. The second step in the process is the traffic impact study aspect, where you analyze the roadway network, the uses being proposed, and then based on township and PennDOT requirements, determine the level of mitigation that's necessary from an impact standpoint. And then the final and usually the longest part of the process, the third and final step, is the highway occupancy permit process, the design process, where you basically take everything that was included within the traffic study, all the roadway improvements, access improvements, and the like that were agreed upon by all parties, and put the pen to paper and design it such that it meets, again, the township and PennDOT criteria. That, as I mentioned, that part of the process is very long. It usually takes up the majority of the overall process. And in this instance, I can tell you that from the initial submission of the highway occupancy permit plans to the issuance of the permit, was approximately 2 years, about 2 years. And it was reviewed a number of occasions by not only PennDOT, by the township and the county as well.
And in your vast experience as a vice president of TPD and seeking highway occupancy permits, not only for this development, but I assume in dozens, if not hundreds of others in this area, PennDOT has no hesitation of holding up a permit if they're not satisfied. Is that correct?
Unfortunately, that is absolutely correct.
And also seeing and hearing your expert testimony, I heard that significant on-site improvements, internal improvements, as well as off-site, to include additional crosswalk, striping, ADA ramps, internal flow and directions, and traffic signalization. Those are a significant cost to the applicant. Is that correct?
That is correct. One of the other aspects of this is the fact that the underlying roadway is concrete, which unfortunately PennDOT requires that any widening of the roadway or any improvements also be in concrete when you have a concrete roadway. So I believe, based on prior estimates, the roadway improvements are in excess of $1.5 to almost $2 million for the off-site roadway improvements.
So that's just the roadway. Figuring in all the others, they're probably in the mid $2 million, $3 million range, correct?
That would be fair, yes.
All right, those are all the questions I have.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kilkenny. Do any board members have questions for Mr. Hammond?
Yep, I got a couple.
And I do too.
Madam Chair. All right, so let the chair go first, and then we'll go to Ms. Wilson.
So the memo that you created that shows the change in the trip generation, was that submitted to PennDOT as well? Because the permit
was not.
For that.
It was not.
Okay.
So, and the reason why it was not submitted to PennDOT is the fact that we received a highway occupancy permit based on certain uses, what I'll call contained within a quote unquote shopping center. The driveways are based on the level or the number of trips that we anticipate associated with the uses, as well as the roadway improvements that are proposed. So we are generating, a pretty substantial amount of traffic, less than what was previously proposed and what the roadway improvements were based on. So we wouldn't necessarily need to go back to PennDOT and modify any permits. It would only be in the reverse if the uses ended up generating more traffic than what we had previously assumed or what was previously included in the approved traffic study, where we would need to go back to PennDOT and potentially amend the permit.
Okay. And then I guess my second question is, the biggest area of concern, I think, is at is it a right-in only that goes into the Wawa parking lot?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so, with that light there, I know you said you were making some signal upgrades. Is there any coordination with the two signals that and at the shopping center entrance? Are they going to be adaptive signals or anything that coordinates the traffic flow?
Great question. And unfortunately, I don't know that I have the plan with me, but I can tell you that the improvements that we're making to the traffic signals are not just relegated to the two signals that are along the frontage. These traffic signals are within a coordinated system. So obviously, when you make change to one signal, you have to make change to all the other signals within that system. So in addition to the actual equipment upgrades, the improvements that we're making at these two signals, we are changing some of the timing schemes at the other coordinated signals so that it works more efficiently. As far as that right-in only driveway, we also coordinated, and I believe the township is aware of the project that PennDOT is doing where they're widening the bridge over the creek. We did coordinate with PennDOT and their consultant on that. We are providing a deceleration lane into that driveway, as well as extending the existing right from Route 1 onto State Road. But as far as the traffic signal is concerned, like I said, the equipment upgrades in the frontage, and then optimization through the coordinated system.
Okay, that's fine.
Could you go back to Exhibit A5? Okay. Can you show me on here how the occupants of the existing Drexel Line apartments will get out to State Road and?
Sure. Dan, I'm going to have to rely on you. So if you want to move your cursor down there. So what we've done is, if you're familiar with it, the Drexel Line apartments, their driveway is almost adjacent to State Road in terms of where they come in internally. In addition, as part of the improvements that we're proposing for that driveway, we're looking to move that driveway a little bit further back to give a little bit of separation between State Road and the entrance into Drexel Line apartments, as Mr. Shabel is showing right now in Exhibit A5, to create that little bit of throat in the driveway. The residents will continue to be able to enter Drexel Line apartments in either direction on State Road via a right turn, and we're providing a deceleration lane at that driveway, or a left turn where that driveway, that driveway currently has a left turn lane. So those will remain. Exiting wise, they'll be able to exit out and make a right and go east on State Road. If they want to go back to Township Line Road, they'd have to exit out, circulate through and around that pad site as Mr. Shabel is showing, and come out to the main driveway where there'll be a traffic signal, which will allow them to make a safe left turn out onto State Road and then enter into the improvements that we're proposing along State Road and at the intersection.
But how do they get over to the shopping center site?
There's an internal connection. Just like as there is today, the internal connection will remain vehicular and pedestrian, and we will be enhancing that area.
Okay, because the way it looks on here is the sidewalk continues around the
So I don't, Dan, can you zoom in on that, please? So you'll see there's a sidewalk. It's kind of tough to see, but there's sidewalk through the area. But that, Danny, can you show the driveway? There's the driveway here.
Yeah,
It
I
comes
see
down
it.
and enters in, and
Yeah,
then enters into our main drive aisle.
okay, good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions for any other members of the board?
Not for me.
All right. Mr. Demico, do you have any more questions of Mr. Hammond based on the board members' questions or the township's questions?
I do not.
Great. Please call your next witness.
Thank you.
Gina Lavery?
Great. Please swear in the witness.
You could raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
It's upside down. Okay. There you go.
All right. Gina, would you give your full name and occupation?
Sure. My name is Gina Lavery, and I am an economic consultant with eConsult Solutions, Inc.
Okay. And what's on the screen there is been marked Exhibit A11. Is that your CV or resume?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And have you previously performed fiscal impact studies and testified before municipal boards in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
Yes, I have.
Mr. Musso, I'm going to ask that Ms. Lavery be accepted as an expert in the field of fiscal impact.
Any objection from the township?
No objection.
So accepted.
Okay, Ms. Lavery, was your firm involved in the preparation of a fiscal impact study for this project?
Yes, we were.
Okay.
And it's the document that's on the screen right now.
Okay, that's Exhibit A12. That's the fiscal impact study dated December 19th, 2020. You prepared that document?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And was your firm involved in the preparation of the fiscal impact study in 2018 that was presented to the zoning hearing board?
Yes, we completed that study back in 2018.
Okay. And you've heard the evidence about how since 2018, the applicant has eliminated roughly 100,000 square feet of commercial development. And is that correct?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the changes in the development program.
Okay. And so you updated your study as a result of those changes?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And referring to your recent update to the study, can you explain the amount of local revenue that you estimate will be produced by construction?
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll, if you scroll down to the third page in our study, it has the figures that from our key findings. So our analysis estimates that the local revenue generated during construction from the project would be a net of $760,000 over the course of the construction period. So local revenues from construction come from two categories primarily. The one is anticipated permits and fees required for the construction activity, and the other is the local service tax on workers during development. So in addition to these estimates, my firm evaluated potential costs to the township from construction. So this is primarily a marginal cost to the township's public safety and highway budget, for example, things like that, in order to calculate the net revenues from construction.
Okay. And can you explain the number of school children that were projected from the development of the previously proposed 142 apartment units?
Yeah, so in our previous analysis, we estimated 10 school-age children would live in the project as it was previously proposed. So our analysis for that was based on, is based on a proprietary residential multiplier data set that my firm has developed. It's called Community Data Analytics, and it provides demographics ratios by a geography called Public Use Microdata Areas, or PUMAs, which are used to predict the number of new residents and children per housing unit and type at a small geography. So we're looking, you know, at the unit mix, and we're looking at whether a project's for rent or for sale in coming up with those demographic multipliers for every analysis we do using this tool. So our analysis is reliant both on the unit mix, as I mentioned, and as well as existing trends within the community.
Okay. And can you explain the number of school children that are projected from the development of the 190 apartment units that are shown on the 2020 zoning plan?
Yeah, so my firm estimates approximately 21 school-age children from the proposed development with 190 units. This increase is based on a combination of the additional just overall units of the project and a different unit mix. I'll also add that because it's been a couple of years since we performed the analysis, we do update our multipliers annually. So there are slightly different multipliers than when we used in 2018.
Okay, thank you. And referring to page 3 of your study, can you explain the net economic benefits from the project when you deduct the annual school costs from the project's annual revenues, including tax revenue, real estate tax revenue?
Yeah, so our analysis calculated net revenues to both the township and the school district. So we're accounting for these existing fiscal impacts from the site as it is, as well as the potential costs associated with the development in the forms of marginal costs associated with workers, residents, and school-age children. So the local revenue that would be produced by the finished project is primarily is primarily a combination of the LST, sewer revenues, and real estate taxes, netting out the kind of costs that I just described. And so all told, we estimate that the net fiscal impact of the project would be $399,000 to the township, and the net fiscal benefit for the school district, when you account for the costs associated with the school-age children, would be $718,000.
Okay, so that's a substantial positive impact, even though your projections are that 21 school-age children will reside at the apartment dwellings.
Yep. Yeah, that's right.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Ramuso, that's all the questions I have for Ms. Lavery.
Thank you, Mr. Kilkenny. Do you have any questions for Ms. Lavery?
Good evening, Ms. Lavery. I just heard your testimony, and you talked about increased real estate taxes and also local services taxes. We're also aware that Upper Darby has a business privilege tax as well.
Yes, we're aware of that.
Okay, so that could also be with increased business and a more productive center, that could be increased BPT revenue to the township and school district as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. We just, to be conservative, we only focused on those kinds of specific taxes that we knew that we could quantify to based on what we know about the project.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Thank you, Mr. Kilkenny. Do any board members have questions for Ms. Lavery?
I do not.
No,
No?
I do. Of
Oh, Ms. Wilson, go ahead.
course. In your study, you mentioned a marginal cost per child of $5,300.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? Because I think that the actual cost per child is at least double that, if not more.
So what we're looking at when we calculate the marginal cost is, the school district gets funds from not only property taxes, but also from other sources such as the state. So we're looking at a combination of like where the actual like sources of revenue need to come for the child. We also are kind of accounting for, they're adding a certain number of extra kids doesn't result in the need for an additional like school building, for example. So we're taking into account some of those overhead costs that don't change based just because of like one or multiple children at a time.
Okay, I think that there's a problem there, but if you have more children than 21, then the thing goes, the differences between the benefit and the cost vary. You know, like right now you're saying the expenses are $112,000, but that could double per child, like just based on the 21,000, because the school district is severely underfunded by the state. So I'm not sure that we're going to see the net fiscal impact to the school district that you're thinking.
Well, respectfully, I understand where you're coming from. You know, we're kind of looking, so even if you were to double and say that we were kind of under by, you know, but if we were halving the expenses, there's still a net fiscal impact to the school district based on our analysis.
Okay.
Any other questions, Ms. Wilson?
No.
Okay.
I have some questions as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, I think I was muted. Sorry. So yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with Miss Wilson, and the 21 students that you say you have for 190 units does seem awfully low. I mean, I understand you have some sort of proprietary system that kind of determines all that, and I'm not going to pretend like I know anything about that, but it just seems like that's a very small amount of children for 190 units. Like, does it take into consideration the cost of the unit, or, you know, I just don't see how it's going to only be 21 students.
So the way that we're looking at this is, you know, the kind of like high level, like what our demographics multipliers are showing is kind of the patterns for the surrounding area and the number of kids that are kind of already living in rental apartment units, but, you know, based on a certain, so like people that live in 1-bedroom apartments technically traditionally have like a, you know, 0.4, I'm putting a number out there just as an example, 0.4 children, and people in 2-bedroom units have another number. And we're looking at those multipliers to get at a total number of kids based on the unit mix that's described here. We also did compare you know, some surrounding apartment projects in the region, and based on the school age children in those projects, we feel confident about our estimates.
So when you say in the region, is that like the Delaware County region, or is that Upper Darby, or what?
That's just based on some comparables in the kind of suburban Philadelphia region.
Okay.
But like I said, though, we're confident also in how our multipliers kind of estimate the breakdown. You know, the traditional trends for apartment projects in general is that these are targeted towards either young professionals or kind of like older adults who are single or kind of where their kids have kind of, you know, graduated and moved out of their houses.
Okay, I have no other questions.
All right. Mr. Amico, do you have any further questions of Ms. Lavery based on the board's questions?
I do not.
Okay. Please call your next witness.
Okay, Lisa Price.
Here. You could raise your right hand, please. Do you swear that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, Lisa, would you give your full name and your occupation for the record?
Lisa Price of Lisa Price and Associates. Our firm provides market research and strategic planning to residential builders and developers.
Okay, and on the screen as what's been marked as Exhibit A13, is that your resume?
Yes.
Okay, and have you been recognized as an expert in market research before municipal boards previously?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Musso, I'm going to ask that Ms. Price be accepted as an expert in the field of residential market research.
Any objections from the township?
No, not at this time.
All right, so accepted.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Price, were you involved in the preparation of the segmentation study for the redevelopment of the subject property?
Yes, that's the document on the screen.
Okay, that's Exhibit A14. Okay, thank you. First, could you explain to the board what is a segmentation study?
It's a market analysis that makes recommendations regarding the number of units by type and unit sizes for a proposed rental community. This is done based on existing rental competitive data and looks for underserved demand.
Okay. And referring to the segmentation study, can you explain how you obtained your data and formulated your opinion?
We looked at existing rental communities in Upper Darby Township, surrounding towns in Delaware County. We then researched the demand and preferences from the expected renter target markets. The competition that we looked at is defined as other luxury Class A apartment communities, but we also looked at Class B and C communities in order to get a full understanding of what the market conditions are. We looked at data including rents, square footages, product mix, percent leased and occupied to identify voids in the market and how Drexel-Line can best be positioned to attract Class A tenants and to fill the voids.
Okay, thank you. What is a Class A rental unit?
Class A rental communities are typically in newer luxury rental communities, and they were typically built within the past 10 years, and they represent the highest quality in their market area. They offer the top amenities and features. They typically attract high income earning tenants and have low vacancy rates. Income requirements are typically 2.5 to 3 times rents.
Okay, thank you. And referring to pages 2 through 4 of your segmentation study, can you explain your findings and what opinion you've reached as to the recommended unit mix for the
Sure.
proposed apartments?
We determined that there is pent-up demand for new Class A rentals due to a number of factors, including the void for new rentals in Drexel Hill and adjacent towns. The demand is predominantly from young singles, mature singles, which would include divorcees that are typically non-custodial parents, young couples, and mature and empty nester couples. As shown on page 4, Dan, if you could please go to page 4 of our report. One more. There's a table. There we go. Thank you. We've recommended the following product mix and unit sizes for Drexel-Line: 80 one-bedroom units, 38 one-bedroom plus den units, and 72 two-bedroom units.
Okay, thank you. And above that table on page 4, you describe how the groups of people that are attracted to this recommended unit mix of units. Can you identify what those groups are?
They're typically young couples young couples and mature couples. Typically what happens with the young couples is they will purchase a home before they have school-age children, because they'll look at a rent-to-own analysis and determine that typically when you look at what you pay for a luxury rental, you can afford a mortgage payment, especially with the low interest rates right now. They also attract mature singles, young and mature couples, and non-custodial divorce parents, as we said before.
Okay, and how's COVID impacted your analysis?
Right now, renters are looking for more space to work from home. So we're seeing increased popularity for 1-bedroom plus den and 2-bedroom units that will offer people more space to work from home, especially if you have a couple living in an apartment, they want 2 workspaces. The suburban rental amenity space is also much different than an urban amenity space. Developers of suburban rentals plan conference rooms, they'll plan pods so that if there's a couple, say in a 1-bedroom, somebody can get out and work in one of the conference rooms or a pod area while another person is working in the actual unit. And this is very cost prohibitive for urban rental developers to offer this type of conference room and pod space. The other thing with urban luxury rental communities right now is renters are migrating from the cities because they're unable to use the city amenities like the museums, entertainment venues, and restaurants and bars. So they're leaving the cities in search of better on-site community amenities and ability to easily and safely get outdoors, which they, haven't been able to do in the city.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Price. With respect to the demographics of people who will be renting these proposed apartments, will they typically involve school-aged children?
No, we don't see a lot of use for school-age children because, as what I said previously, they see that they want to move out typically once they start having kids, is they want to move out to a home. And like I said before, the cost of a luxury rental is about the same as it would be for a mortgage payment on a starter home.
Okay, thank you. Although the data projects a relatively small number of school-aged children who will be living in these apartments, has the applicant made any adjustments to its plans in order to further minimize potential impact for school-aged children?
Yes, we originally recommended 92 two-bedroom units, which is 20 more than the developer is pursuing right now. And while we don't think these two-bedroom units will attract residents with school-aged children, the reallocation of the unit mix should further help reduce the impact on school-aged children.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Price. Mr. Musso, that's all the questions I have for this witness.
Mr. D'Amico, Mr. Kilkenny, do you have any questions for Ms. Price?
No questions.
Any board members have questions for Ms. Price?
No.
No.
No questions? All right, thank you, Ms. Price. Mr. D'Amico, do you have any more witnesses?
One more witness, Mr. Frank Russo, who's the project architect.
I just remind you that if all your witnesses could remain available to answer questions from the public once we get to the conclusion of your case.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so call your last witness.
Frank, where are you?
See me? You see me?
You can raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, Mr. Russo, would you state your full name and your occupation and place of employment for the record?
Sure. My name is Frank Russo. I'm an architect at Bergman, located in Philadelphia.
Okay, and are you a registered architect in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
Yes, sir. Registered in Pennsylvania since 2003.
Okay. Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit A15. Is that your CV or resume?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And I'm going to ask that Mr. Russo be accepted as an expert in the field of architecture.
Any objections from the township?
No objection.
So accepted.
Thank you. Mr. Russo, were you involved in the preparation of the revised plans for the redevelopment of the subject property?
Yes, I have been.
Okay. And on the screen there is what's been marked Exhibit A16. Would you identify that?
Yes, that's the revised rendering for the building.
All right. And referring to the rendering, can you explain how the design is thematically consistent with the rest of the project?
Sure. We looked at the building in terms of scale, based on the building scale and pedestrian scale, massing of the building, and material selection. The building, as you can see at the scale, is comparable to the adjacent Drexel Line apartments at 5 stories. The massing is broken down by the undulation of the facade to a pedestrian level and scale through the use of overhangs, balconies, again, to break the mass of the building down. And materials across the board, the use of stone, brick, stucco, similar metals is consistent with the rest of the development. It really provides a continuity across the development, which we think is important in this type of design.
Okay, thank you. In a number of meetings with the township, it was requested by the mayor and township engineer that the apartments be positioned with more of a focal point toward the creek. Can you explain how this was achieved?
Yeah, so back in 2018, the building was primarily set on a north-south axis. In the current version, current plan, we extended the leg, and I don't know if you want to pull up a plan, we could look at it. Not that plan. We basically extended the leg in the east-west direction to create that L. Again, that primarily opens up views to the creek. It parallels the train tracks and really opens up the site to the rest of the center.
Okay, thank you. Can you summarize from an architectural viewpoint how this would be improving upon the existing conditions?
Sure. Again, the use of scale to match the adjacent buildings, the use of building materials, the scale of the building across the entire site, again, is very friendly to pedestrians. Circulation around the site and building enhance the viability of the center as a whole. Previously, there was a question that I recall being asked about access and parking. We do have some parking below the building, which would accommodate ADA parking with direct access to the building from that lower level.
Okay, thank you. So are these, is this building and the extension consistent with the height variance that this board granted in 2018? So we don't need, this building's not any higher than it was in 2018. Is that correct?
No, that's correct. The apartment building is still 5 stories at 61 feet. The new L extension is comparable and the same height.
Okay, thank you. As a registered architect, having studied the proposed use and being familiar with all the details to which you've just testified, do you have an opinion as to whether the development would have any adverse effect on the health, safety, or the general welfare of Upper Darby Township residents?
No, I believe that the building will have a very positive effect, actually. The continuity of the site, materials will really make for a consistent and pleasing.
No, you gotta be kidding me.
Sorry, somebody,
Oh, there we go.
oh, Mr. Russo froze.
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna let him know he's frozen and he wants to log.
Town center.
There he goes.
Mr. Russo, you were
Yeah.
frozen, that whole answer. Why don't you just repeat that answer if you wouldn't mind?
Okay, so yes, I believe the project as a whole will have a very positive impact on the township. The center, really creating a new town center design is a positive thing for this development.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Russo. Mr. Amuso, that's all the questions I have for this witness.
Great. Does the township have any questions for Mr. Russo?
Just a couple. Good evening, Mr. Russo.
Good evening.
The site as it's currently configured really has no consistent architectural design, does it?
Design from different uses, but obviously through the use of material and scale, we are bringing the continuity across the project. So the existing center itself now is very disjointed and, really 3 or 4 separate parcels. As testified previously, parking, circulation on the site, there's no cohesiveness to it. And obviously our redesign is really attempting to clarify and improve those conditions.
And that redesign, besides your vision and the other professionals on your team of the redesign, how did who from the township reviewed the concepts and gave you input?
So this was, again, I was not present in all the meetings, but this was presented multiple times across actually this project's been going on for a number of years. So there's been multiple people reviewing it in the past.
And besides having a cohesive site design, as you just described, which is a great improvement from the current development, does it also fit in the context of neighboring developments along this commercial corridor?
Oh, absolutely. As I testified previously, the scale of the residential building is comparable to the Drexel Line apartments right next door. So again, we're not interjecting anything that's different or obtrusive along that corridor.
Thank you very much.
All right. Any questions from the board members for Mr. Russo? Madam Chair.
Yep. So I kind of see this as kind of a gateway project into Upper Darby Township, and just looking at the architectural design, I don't see any signage, or is that part of the plan as well? And what type of signage will you be putting on the buildings, or?
On the residential building,
Well, I mean, just the development as a whole. You're kind of right as you enter into Upper Darby Township. I was just wondering if there was any signage of that nature, or, you know.
Well, yes, there are pylon signs along State Road. I don't know if you can zoom into the plan and see them identified, but there are pylon signs at the entry into the center.
Okay, yeah, I can't really see that in the architectural. Okay, that's really my only comment.
Any other questions from the board members?
You're on mute, Peggy.
Yeah. So I just wanted to reiterate that there will be elevator access in the building for handicap residents.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see on the plan, there's the core at the intersection of the L. And as I testified previously, that would extend down to the lower level parking as well.
Okay.
So an accessible access at the lower level, somebody can get in the elevator and go right up.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay. Ms. Woodard, do you have any questions for this witness?
No, I do not. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Damick, any further questions based on the board members' questions?
No, Mr. Musso, I have no further witnesses at this time. I'd like to move admission of the exhibit package, which we sent to you.
Any objection from the township?
No, township has no objection.
Those are admitted into evidence.
Thank you.
Does that conclude your case?
Yes, sir, it does.
All right. Mr. Kilkenny, does the township, I know you're here in support of the application. Do you have any witnesses or any evidence you want to put on?
The township has no witnesses or evidence. There may be some individual council members that comment during the comment period. That being said, as I said previously, I'm here on behalf of the mayor and the administration in support of this project, which the administration views as a greatly improved plan from the 2018 plan, and would like to thank the members of the public, members of council, and all those professionals that were involved in this greatly enhanced plan, and would hope that the zoning hearing board would look upon this favorably. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kilkenny. All right, now we'll get into public comment and question. We do have several folks who have signed up to make public comments. So I'll go off that list first, and then we'll see if anybody else is coming. The first person on the list is the mayor. Is the mayor here? Would you like to make public comments or ask questions? I know Mr. Kilkenny's here representing you, but you did sign up for public comment. And we, of course, welcome.
Oh, I thought I signed up to be at this meeting, but yes, I'd just like to say that the land development proposal was given to the township earlier this year in February or March, and we've worked very hard with MCBH to improve it. And it's we've had a lot of meetings, a lot of them were with Zoom, but I think that this plan it fits into the zoning variances that would have already been granted, and it's just a much better plan, and I'm totally in support of it.
Thank you, Mayor, for your comments. Is Councilwoman Wentz here? Councilwoman Wentz, would you like to make comment? You signed up.
Sorry, yes, hi, I'm here. Actually, I'd like to go last if that's possible.
Sure, that's possible. I don't know when that'll be, but you want to go
That's
last.
okay. I'm listening diligently, but
Okay.
I'd like to go last.
Okay. I think we can accommodate you, Councilwoman. Councilman Bonnet, are you here?
I am, Mr. Amuso.
Would you like to make comment or have any questions or whatever you'd like to do?
Yes, I would like to comment. Thank you very much. I'd like to begin by thanking the Zoning Hearing Board for scheduling this special meeting. I think it is the first opportunity that the residents of Upper Darby have had to participate in a presentation, understand what is being proposed, and voice comment in person. They have not had that opportunity to date. So I think this is a real benefit to our community. So I thank the members of the Zoning Hearing Board for agreeing to this special meeting. This plan, as it was stated, was a plan negotiated between the current administration, the mayor, the chief administrative officer, and the developer. But I want to stress here that this was done without any input of the community, without any input from the first district where this building and project is located. And I was not involved in it as I was with the previous administration and the previous plan. The previous plan, which was approved in 2018, was appealed. It was appealed by 3 residents of Upper Darby. It was taken to Common Pleas Court. In fact, Mr. Kilkenny, who is the solicitor of the township and is present this evening, represented the appellants in that appeal. So I know Mr. Kilkenny is very familiar with their issues at the time. They literally appealed the entire project. However, they reached an amicable agreement to modify the plan modestly, rather modestly, where the impervious surface was reduced. I think it went from 80% to 75%. But now we're lauding the fact that it went to another percent less. Not that that's bad, it's certainly good, but I don't think it is the reason for this project proceeding with 48 more residential units or apartment units. We also have to look at the impact of those additional 48 units. And by the way, I firmly believe that this project has to move ahead in some form, at least similar to a plan that was previously approved by the Zoning Hearing Board in 2018, but perhaps not necessarily with 48 more units because of the impact of those units. Those units are taking out a major venue in Upper Darby Township, and that is Anthony's Restaurant. That restaurant is a destination, if you will, to residents of Drexel Hill and Upper Darby and many communities around Upper Darby. It's a very important venue to many people. It's a facility that has nearly 27,000 square feet. And I am told by the developer that they are making available another site, and maybe they are. I believe it's the 6,400 square foot pad site towards the front of the property near State Road, which is about 1/4 the size of the Anthony's Restaurant. And I can't see how that is a reasonable alternative to continue a restaurant in Upper Darby Township of the same quality. And also the present restaurant has banquet facilities associated with it, which again are very important as a destination for people of Upper Darby Township. So I think that a message to the Zoning Hearing Board is that section 1200J of the zoning ordinance, specifically 1200J2E, states that the variance, if authorized, will represent the minimum variance that will be afforded relief and will represent the least modification possible of the regulation at issue. So it is incumbent upon the Zoning Hearing Board members to consider whether 48 units is in fact the minimum relief that is necessary. I submit that it's not. I think it's as important to consider other aspects, many other aspects of how this site would be developed. As I said, this project must move ahead. the present conditions at this shopping center are demeaning to the residents of Upper Darby. We cannot allow this to go on. We need to allow this project to proceed in some form. But I submit to the zoning hearing board that you need to give very serious thought, because this decision is yours and only yours. It cannot be made by the council of Upper Darby. It cannot be made by the mayor of Upper Darby or any other member of the administration in terms of being able to grant this relief. This decision rests solely on your shoulders. So I ask you to very carefully analyze what is being requested. You can approve the 48 units, you can disapprove the 48 units, but the municipality's planning code also allows you to consider options to that and grant something less than the 48. Perhaps some are warranted, whether a plan to have fewer additional units is appropriate, that's your decision. But I submit to you that you should at least consider that, and also create the ability in any plan that were developed here that we can maintain a restaurant, a major restaurant. This is called a town center. Well, how can you have a town center with all commercial space and residential space and no restaurants? I think that's very important to the people of Upper Darby. The impact on the school district, I think I asked you to consider that very thoroughly. It sounds a bit shy of what impact it could in fact have on our school district. I think we're all aware of the fact that the demographics, the population, the student population in Upper Darby has grown. It has grown beyond the capacity of our school district to adequately facilitate the students in the right environment. There is a plan to expand the local elementary school to which these kids would be at the K through 6th grade level would be, or 5th grade level probably, would be relegated to attend. That's the Aronimink Elementary School. That school has a plan for expansion, but it's based on other data, not data including this additional group of residential units. So I asked the zoning hearing board members to give very serious consideration to the fact that the 48 additional units may not be appropriate to receive a variance to allow them to be constructed here and impact the removal of an existing restaurant and also some adjacent commercial space that would be very valuable to have in the final plan. By the way, this plan is significantly similar to, other than the additional apartment units, significantly similar to the former plan. But let me just recite very briefly what I see as the differences. First of all, 48 apartment units, as we discussed. That is a 34% increase over what was previously approved. As I mentioned, Anthony's Restaurant will be eliminated, as will some additional commercial retail space. As we heard the developer present this evening, 70,000 square feet of office space, which once was going to be a medical office facility, will no longer be built. And by the way, it's claimed that there is no market for that type of real estate, office real estate. I was looking at some statistics today that were actually coincidentally sent to me. And as it turns out that among about 16 suburban regions in the real estate market, the commercial real estate market for office space, Delaware County has a vacancy of only 8.2%. That is compared to the lowest, which is only 8% vacancy, and then the next lowest 8.1. So 8.2% among others that get up to as high as 18% speaks well for real estate occupancy in Delaware County. So I would ask that, you consider those facts. So going on, the underground parking is being eliminated. That was mentioned. The impervious surface area will be decreased, which is a good thing. That's about another 2,000 square feet to quantify it, excuse me. That will be a benefit to the project overall. But I submit to you that in your considerations to consider whether that can still apply regardless of whether or not 48 units or something less than 48 units are approved. The trail, of course, is going to be expanded by 8 feet, so that's another difference. There will be relatively minor changes to the pedestrian circulation pattern. There was always a fairly good pedestrian circulation pattern proposed at this site. And there is going to be I'm told, a community garden added to this facility. So there are just some of the, and I guess the most significant of the proposed changes. So I thank you for listening to me, and I ask that you give very serious consideration to approving something less than 48 units, in addition to the 142 previously approved.
Thank you, Councilman Bonnet.
Thank you.
Councilman Wagner, I believe you'd like to make public comment.
Yes, I would. Thank you very much. I'm going to be pretty brief. I agree with most of what my colleague Don Bonnet just had to say, but I'm going to add a few things. In the first place, I'm Tom Wagner. I represent the 3rd District in Upper Darby, and next to Mr. Bonnet's 1st District, the 3rd District is the most directly affected by this development because we're right next door to it, and residents of the 3rd District, just like residents of the 1st, use the Drexel Line Shopping Center constantly. So this is of tremendous importance, not just to me, but to the 12,000 people that I represent in the 3rd District. I want to say thank you to the zoning board, not only for holding this meeting, but for the way you conducted it. I really thought that the questions the zoning hearing board members asked tonight were intelligent and reasonable questions, a number of which I don't think, frankly, were answered. And that's a little disturbing. For example, a number of questions were asked by members of the zoning hearing board about the apartment units and whether they were going to be mostly 1 or 2 bedroom units. That question was more dodged than anything else. And I think we need better answers to those questions. But nonetheless, I want to say thank you to the zoning board for a job well done on a very, very important project to the community. I'm disappointed in this. I'm very disappointed that the administration and its solicitor used this event tonight as a platform to argue again and again and over how much better this plan today in 2020 is than the 2018. And that's all because of their embarrassment, as we all know, over the fact that the 2018 plan was derailed for reasons most of us believe were just purely political and connected to the election of Mayor Keffer at the time. I will always believe that's exactly what happened back then in 2018. And the resurrection now of this plan is not because this is a better plan. It's not a better plan. I will say firmly, as a resident of the community and someone who represents 12,000 people here, I don't believe this is a better plan that's before us now than the one that we had in 2018. This plan, in fact, eliminates some 70,000 square feet of office space, much of which would have been medical. It also eliminates an important restaurant, as Mr. Bonnet was discussing, and in their place puts 48 new apartments, which will certainly impose a further burden on an already overburdened school district. But I would also point out, by the way, that most of the witnesses who were called to testify tonight, I believe also testified in 2018 in favor of this project then. So it's pretty startling to me that suddenly the same witnesses are back to tell us how much better this plan is than the one that they were touting in 2018. That was a good plan. in 2018. It would be a reality today, and it should be, but it's not, for reasons that I think we're all only too familiar with. So does that mean that I'm against this plan? Not at all. On the contrary, I won't do what I think people did in 2018, take their political shots at what was a good and solid plan for the community. Instead, I think this plan must be approved. It is something we desperately need in Upper Darby. Is it perfect? No, neither was the one in 2018, and no plan is perfect. But this plan is vastly better than what we have now. It's got to be remembered too, this is a private developer. It's not public money that's being used to make all these improvements to our community. So I think we should all embrace it and make it happen. I'm very hopeful that the zoning hearing board will approve it. I'm very hopeful that this time there won't be any appeals, frivolous or otherwise, from what the zoning hearing board does. And I'm hoping that this plan becomes a reality, just like the one in 2018 should have been a reality by now. It's not, but let's make sure this one becomes a reality because it's very, very important to our entire community. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Councilman Wagner. Is Councilwoman Billups here? You signed up for public comment.
I am here. I didn't sign up for a public comment. I apologize.
Oh, you don't wish to say anything? That's fine.
No, I'm in support of the project, but thank you.
All right, well, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Ms. Jordan, Leanne Jordan. Do you hear Ms. Jordan?
I'm here. Yes, I'm
Good.
here. I'm sorry.
No need to apologize. So I know you had questions about the number of units. Were those answered? If not, feel free to ask them. So feel free to ask whatever questions you have of any of the witnesses and then make any public comment you'd like.
Okay, and also my husband, Michael Jordan, is with me and he has some questions too. So yes, my questions were answered about the.
You could go and then your husband can go, but just please say your name and address for the record.
Sure. Lee Jordan, 90 Pilgrim Lane, Drexel Hill, Pennsylvania, 19026. Yes, my questions about the units, they were answered. Thank you very much.
Great.
I also would like to thank the zoning board, Ms. Wilson and Mr. Pearson. It was very evident that you did do your homework, and I really appreciate the questions concerning the school district and the impact on the school district. I would like to see Ms. Lowry go back and relook at those numbers. I served on the Upper Darby School Board for 4 years, and those numbers are not correct. So she can go back and look at them. And just one more comment that I have, Ms. Price mentioned about the apartments being appealing to like the, younger generation, people moving out of the city. And just to echo Mr. Bonnet, a town center needs a restaurant. Everybody wants everything within walking distance. That's why you would move out of the city. So that's all I had to say. And then my husband has some comments. Can he talk now or?
That's fine since he's there with you. We could just knock that.
Thank you.
I'm Mike Jordan, 90 Pilgrim Lane, Drexel Hill. So question first, the 2018 testimony talked a lot about increases in tax revenue from the current situation. Tonight's presentation talked about the total tax revenue. And if you look at the numbers, try to compare them, that it's not an apples to apples comparison. So are there numbers that you can, that maybe the Gina Library can talk to that discuss the differences in revenue between this plan and the 2018 plan that was approved?
Ms. Lowry, can you answer that question?
Yeah, if you don't mind, Dan, going back up to my report, the last page. Mr. Jordan, we did, so the number, I might have kind of like spoken a little bit too fast. The numbers that we were talking about were the net tax revenues and not the overall.
Okay, but all right, so yes. What are those numbers compared to what the net numbers would have been with the 2018 plan?
Let me pull that up. I have that in notes right here. So for the construction component, previously, sorry, I'm just toggling through my tables. We estimated that the total net impact would be 520,000 roughly. And we're now estimating 760,000. That's for construction.
Okay. All right,
For,
so we're building 70,000 less square feet of office space for more money? Does that make sense?
so our numbers are based on estimates for the permits and fees associated with the construction. So I'm not entirely sure.
Okay, so all right, so take that out. Let's look at the tax revenue side of it. That's really what's more important. Because the construction part's basically a wash, correct? Because that's township doesn't generate actual revenue off of that, correct?
They generate revenue in the forms of any permits and fees and a little bit of LST, I believe. So there's a little bit. It's only a one-time benefit, though. It's not happening like over and over again.
Ongoing. So ongoing. What is the net additional effect of this plan?
So I'll talk through to the township first, because we did split that up into the township and the school district. So at the township level, we calculated the net fiscal impact being around $399,000. So that's taking into account net new revenues of $508,000, and we're negating expenses in the form of marginal costs for additional residents within the township of $118,000.
That's new. So let's assume that this property is generating zero tax revenue right now. You're saying after this project, it would generate $508,000 in gross tax revenue.
Well, we're already assuming that the property is generating taxes right now in the form of property taxes. We have that information, as well as other activities that are happening.
So again, so I'm not trying to be confrontational, but my question is, what's the new economic impact of this plan versus the 2018 plan?
Right. So what I'm saying is that the new impact is this $399,000. So in the 2018 testimony that I believe was done by one of your colleagues, they're saying it was net of 210,000 in net increase of 210,000 in new revenue to the township. Okay.
So you're saying essentially is eliminating. So hear out my thought process, please, and I hope the board is paying attention to this as well. So what you're saying is by eliminating 70,000 square feet of office space and only adding 48 more residential units, you're doubling the amount of tax revenue?
That's not exactly what I'm saying. I think that you have to take into consider some market dynamics right now, and a lot of what is generated in terms of tax revenues is associated with the property taxes generated from the site. And if you look at the kind of market comparables that we're looking at to estimate an assessment value for the property today, we're looking at Delaware County's 2020 reassessments as a benchmark, as well as recent sales comparables. And those property values are what we use as like a benchmark for property tax estimates for this analysis. In 2018, the scenario, the market was a little bit different.
Excuse me, Mr. Musso?
Yes.
It seems like we're spending, and I understand the applicant presented this testimony, but I know of no case law that talks about tax revenue really being a standard for granting of or continuation of variance relief. I just find this, I know somebody has an opportunity to comment, but this person does not ask for party status. This seems like a very rigorous cross-examination into tax revenue, and I really do not understand how this is relevant to the application before us.
I appreciate that. Mr. D'Amico, do you have any, well, it's not really, I guess you agree with the township?
Yeah, I mean, I think we ought to try to
All right,
keep it to.
You know what, I'll
Comments.
speed up my question and get to my comments, and we'll go from there. So, like Mr. Wagner, like Mr. Bonnet, I think this project is crucial that we get it done. You know, it's the gateway to Drexel Hill and Upper Darby. You know, it's been way underutilized for way too long. Current conditions unwelcoming. It's not consistent with what we expect as residents. I do have concerns about the additional apartments. And much as Mr. Bonnet said, I really think that we need to consider some other alternative to 48 additional units. Over the years, I've been privileged to sit on many committees, focus groups, hearings, testimonies regarding the township's comprehensive plan. And I can't recall a single instance where anybody in any of those meetings said, yeah, we need more residential real estate rental property in the township. So I think we need to listen to the concerns of the community. And maybe I was giving a rigorous cross-exam on some numbers that I found hard to follow. But the reason for that is that as a taxpayer, these numbers impact my quality of life and the quality of life of the rest of my my neighbors as well. I'm going to wrap this. Oh, and just additionally, town center theme. Yeah, you need restaurants. You need more amenities other than just a supermarket cafe. I'm going to wrap it up with two observations. First of all, and the reason I was asking the questions on tax revenues, I think it's pretty simple and pretty straightforward. From what I can see, the difference in this plan, to kind of take Mr. Wagner's comments into context. So from the 2018 plan to where we are right now, we've gained a couple points in better impervious coverage. We've got 3-foot wider walking path, got a few more trees, a community garden, charging stations, all at the cost of 2 years in lost development. Those jobs, those are tax revenues. And given that we weren't able to answer those questions properly, I think it's just, you know, again, the project needs to go on, but there's more to this than is meeting the eye. And I also find it very hard to believe, to echo Mr. Bonnet's comments, that an attorney who represented the people that appealed this at the beginning does not have an inherent conflict of interest in sitting on this panel and representing the township in this matter. And then given his political grandstanding tonight about everything being all about the mayor and her CEO bringing this project to fruition, that just explains why the situation is what it is. And I'd like to say that for the record. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Jordan. Is Bonnie Hallam here? Ms. Hallam?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, you signed up for public comment. Please, if you have any questions, ask them of any of the witnesses, and then please make your comment.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Bonnie Hallam. I live at 4719 Woodland Avenue, Drexel Hill, PA, 19026. And in full transparency, I am one of the two appellants on the Drexel Line zoning appeal in 2018. From the very beginning, I've tried to be clear that I very much want this development to happen, have never been opposed to the development as a whole, and I want to repeat this tonight. I live 3 blocks from the Drexel Line, and I truly want that site developed into a beautiful, functional, environmentally, economically, and culturally sustainable site. When my fellow appellant and I opposed the decision of the zoning board originally, we did so because we had some very specific concerns that would not just impact the environment, but also the economic and cultural sustainability of the Drexel Line. Our township codes were created because they address critical issues, and those that passed these codes and ordinances studied the issues, found models of effective ordinances, and followed the science behind why these best practices are put in place. It was clear to me that the plans originally developed by MCB could have serious environmental consequences for the township and the downstream communities. And these environmental consequences would cause economic challenges for the businesses at the Drexel Line, the people living in the apartments, and the challenges for the community members who wanted to shop there and have a great town center as a destination. Although Janice and I have been vilified falsely by many, our only purpose in appealing the zoning decision was to try and get a better plan for Upper Darby Township. We feel we did that by decreasing the impervious surface area by 5%, which some might think is insignificant, but in actuality is a substantial amount in taking care of stormwater management. And by ensuring a larger buffer and stipulating that the developers rethink the plan given the very vulnerable floodplain that was being developed. I believe that the developers, along with the current administration, have worked really hard to come up with a better plan. And in conjunction with the settlement of the original appeal, we'll make sure that the Drexel line will be developed responsibly and thoughtfully. Tonight, I'm here to ask a few questions about the buffer next to the creek. In our original settlement, MCB and the township agreed to delineate the areas where there could be no buffer because of structures already in place, and where there could be a wider buffer and how wide that buffer could be. A functioning buffer is considered to be 30 to 50 feet wide and include trees and shrubs to both manage stormwater and filter runoff. Since the plan has changed, and some structures might not be so close to the edge of the creek in the new plan, can you please explain how much of a buffer will be planned for in your current design and how the public can find out the specifics about the size of the buffer along the creek edge at any given point? I'm going to ask my question. If you could answer the questions, I have a couple after that. So
Yeah, but I was just going to say, let's take these one at a time. Mr. D'Amico, who'd be the best witness of yours to answer that question?
Yeah, Mr. Hornick can, we can put up the site plan and Mr. Hornick can review the buffer along the stream bank.
Sure. So Dan, I don't know if you could scroll to, why don't we scroll first, Dan, to Exhibit A5, the 2018 plan. There we go. Thank you. So, as we had explained back in the 2018 plan, today there is essentially zero stream buffer along the creek as it's paved. The site is paved right up to the stream bank today. In the 2018 plan, we were within the buffer along the creek. We were able to provide an increase of green area within the buffer by approximately 43%. And I believe that was then made part of the subsequent stipulation. So in that plan, the widest green areas were near the Wawa. And then as you got near the back of the storage building and the ShopRite, and then as you proceeded towards the trolley station area, the buffer tightened up, and that's where we had the edge of the parking lot and at that time the 5-foot wide trail. So in the new plan, there are no areas along the stream buffer that are constricted further. If anything, there are now other areas that are widened with respect to the green area. So the trail's widened to 8 feet. The tightest areas are still along the back of the ShopRite and the storage area. But now as we approach the trolley station, we were able to eliminate some parking that was up against the creek and provide some more green space in that area. So the amount of green space along the creek has been increased by almost 8,000 square feet compared to the 2018 plan.
is there a way to understand that in terms of how wide it will be in certain areas? When you talk about the trail, is the trail included in that amount of space that you're talking about from the top of the creek to, and that's 8 feet. So what's how wide at any given space might the buffer be?
So the trail is not included as green buffer. The trail is blacktop. So we're not including the trail in when I say we've added more green, I'm not including the trail actually. So the tightest places where the trail is really close to the top of bank, it's as little as like 5 to 10 feet. But as you get towards the apartments, and I'm approximating this, it widens to closer to 30 to 50 feet. Over by the Wawa at its widest, it's probably closer to 80 feet. And then it varies everywhere in between as the curb is different with respect to the top of stream bank.
Is there a way to like publish that somewhere so that we could actually like see those dimensions somewhere in the plan when you actually get it up on the website, say, of the township, so that we could actually look at it and see that? That would be helpful.
Sure. I mean, the plans are scalable, but in light of that, what we can do on the plan is add just dimensions at certain key points on the plan, like a label, so you could look at it and see, okay, right there, it's 20 feet, right there, it's 7 feet, right there, it's 60 feet or something.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
So my second question is on that area that's the green space and not the trail area. Will there be trees planted along that area and shrubs?
We will where we have the room to. So let me take a look at the landscape plan currently as proposed. Hang on one second. So we have the majority of plantings proposed over in the Wawa area, because that's where the green space is widest. There are also some utility easements in places where we can't put plantings because the authorities would not let us. So we're planting in places like, for example, on the south side of the ShopRite, in an area where we have a little bit of a wider area to use. We're planting it up with trees, as many as we can fit. We're adding some trees over by the buffer zone where the apartments are. And then the majority down over by the Wawa, because that's where the most room is.
Okay. Let me ask about, you had mentioned, and as part of the settlement, that part of the trail would be a porous material. And we've, the group that I am involved with as far as the environmental concerns has done a lot of research into the new generation of porous asphalt and the maintenance of that and the cost of that. And it seems from all the research that's being done is that porous asphalt is actually a really good material to use if possible, and that the maintenance of it isn't really any more than you would, for instance, in the wintertime, it doesn't ice and you would have to clear it. Also, the cleaning of it only needs to happen maybe 1 or 2 times a year, and the cost of that is not that great. So I'm wondering if you might consider thinking about extending that porous asphalt. If you do your own research and thinking about, is it possible to extend that porous area further than you've thought about so far? Once you get that in, and it's going to be porous anyway, extending it along the trail might not be that much different.
There's one reservation I have about extending it further. Where the trail is tight to the creek in a lot of places, we have retaining walls proposed, and so you'd have a wall, and then inside of that would be, say, a fence, and then the trail, then the curb, and then the paving. I would not want to have a porous substance that lets water run straight through it when it's in proximity to a retaining wall. That's just a structural thing. So that's the main reason why, when the question was first put to me, when MCB asked me, hey, can we make that whole trail porous originally, I said I would not do it where it's near these walls because a retaining wall designer is going to have a lot of issues with that. So that's the main reason why we stayed away from that. And that's what I would say still now.
Okay. And so one of the things that was talked about when we had the settlement was making the trail, grading it in such a way that runoff would go back into the stormwater management of the other areas. And is that still going to be the case in this new plan?
Yes.
Okay. And I know that Peggy Wilson asked earlier about the underground parking lot, and I don't think that we heard definitively that there will be no underground parking lots on the site.
So there once was proposed a parking beneath the ShopRite when the medical office building was a part of the plan. There was going to be a parking lot under the ShopRite that was primarily to service the medical office building. So that is no longer proposed. We are anticipating and planning for what's called a podium level parking under a portion of the apartments building. And it's not, when we say underground, it's not something that you drive down into that's like subsurface. It would be at grade on the back side where the ground is sort of level with the SEPTA tracks. So at that level would be a parking level for the lowest level of the apartment building. If you go around then to the front side, you would go up to say the next floor, which would be the first floor of the units. So that's the only place that we would have an underground parking. But like I said, it's not really subterranean, it daylights.
Okay. And just finally, I belong to a number of civic organizations in Upper Darby, and I know these organizations are very eager to help by providing volunteers for planting, monitoring, and other tasks. How can the community be more a part of the development, including not only the community gardens, but also say the proposed rain gardens? We do have a rain garden group in Upper Darby. We also have tree tenders, and we're all eager to be civic minded and to work on the project if we can help at all.
That's probably not a question I can answer. I can say that we are showing the community garden on the plan that was a part of the stipulation. As far as, you know, civic groups and the maintenance of it, that's not, I'm not the owner. That's not something I can speak to, but maybe somebody else can speak to that.
Okay.
Bonnie, this is Dan Shabell. How are you?
Hi.
We are, we're always willing to listen, and I thought there was a part. Wasn't there an environmental committee that was formed based on the settlement? We have to balance what the community wants with getting a plan and then getting it approved and then executing on it.
Right.
And then, but I think you have, our experience together, you have a great heart, and we want to, we're willing to listen, but we have to balance environmental concerns with economic concerns and the need. I think everybody agrees we need to get this project moving. So
absolutely. I agree.
So you can call me. You can call me anytime, Bonnie.
Well, thank you, Dan. I really appreciate that. And much to Rita, I haven't opposed you. You know that our settlement was amicable, and you know that we all tried to work together. And I just, it's very disheartening to have people continue to call that out as if it were something that we did bad and not something that we did for good. So I appreciate you speaking up, and I'm really eager to work with you, and anytime we can, I'm happy to do that. So thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Helm. Appreciate your comments tonight. Is Mr. Lockhart here? Stephen Lockhart. Let's see, is Mr. Lockhart here? Stephen Lockhart, I don't see him on the attendance list. All right. Is Ms. Lombardi here? I know I let you into the.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, ma'am.
Thank
So feel free to state your, well, please state your name and address for the record, then ask any questions you have and make any comments.
All right. I'm Dolores Lombardi. I live at 29 South Kirkland Avenue in Upper Darby. As head of the Upper Darby Shade Tree Commission and as a resident of Upper Darby, I care that new development will address and increase the quality of our community's environment and life experience. So I thank you for the improvements in Drexel Line's newly proposed plans. An important area of concern I've had from the onset of this development is the creek buffer. It was requested of and granted by the 2018 zoning board to reduce this buffer from the required 50 feet to 0 feet. And the trail has been widened, but as I hear, much of that will be paved in asphalt. So that constitutes impervious surface and runoff right along the creek bank. So trees are a major tool used to reduce and filter stormwater runoff. And I also thank you for all the additional trees that you've put into the plan. But trees are also planted to reinforce creek banks. Depending on the species, a typical tree can intercept between 760 to 3,000 gallons of water per tree per year, and their roots create a water filtration system. I would like to see an avenue of trees planted along the new trail. This would be a wonderful fortification of the creek buffer and provide a beautiful experience for people walking and biking along the trail. An avenue of trees would help mitigate some of the damage of a reduced creek buffer for the future of the area. I mean, I know it's an improvement on what there is now, but whatever we do now will probably what will be in place for, I don't know, maybe 100 years. So I'm looking to the future of the creek buffer.
Thank you, Ms. Lombardi, for your comment.
You're welcome.
Is Faith Zerb here? Ms. Zerb? Hi. Hi, ma'am. Would you please state your name and address for the record?
Sure. My name is Faith Zerby. I live at 379 Upland Way in Drexel Hill. And I'm speaking tonight too under my capacity as Director of Monitoring with Delaware Riverkeeper Network.
Okay.
I'll tie that in to kind of what I have to say. And I do have some questions, but I'm just gonna make a couple points at first that the zoning hearing board may want to hear. So first, thank you to the zoning hearing board for giving us time today to kind of see a more thorough look at the plan. It has been a bit of time. And of course, you know, we had been involved back in 2018 when it was standing room only in a room where everyone had major concerns with this development in a sensitive area of the Darby Creek floodplain. And Riverkeeper, you know, over the last 20 years, you know, we've been doing a lot of projects in the Darby Creek watershed downstream of this development in places like Lansdowne and places like Darby Borough, which have a lot of environmental justice communities, frankly, to get people out of harm's way of floodplains, right? So an example would be the Darby Borough project at John Bartram's Park, where a whole row of homes were demolished because they were repetitive loss flooding homes, right? So I bring that because I think whatever we do as residents of Upper Darby, as somebody who's lived in the township for about 17 years now and who loves the township, we always want to be thinking about the impact that we're causing to other people downstream. And knowing that we're living in a time of climate change, we're living in a time of flooding, we have some grave concerns with this, you know, new and improved plan, which again, we recognize is better. The stormwater infiltration, much better than the initial rubber stamping that the administration that was prior to this administration had just rubber stamped in, frankly. And again, we'd like to speak to the community that rose up and wanted to challenge those rubber stamps. So there has been progress made, but we still believe there could be more progress. We also understand that, you know, the developer has conceptual designs right now, and we have not reviewed a lot of information. And frankly, you know, when we're looking at the small screens here, we do appreciate the zoning hearing board questions, because tonight I learned a bit more than what I had heard prior with the new plan. So it helps a little bit, but our comfort level as scientists at Delaware Riverkeeper Network are really when, we have to look at what happens in the weeds, right? The angel or the devil is in the details of these plans, and the public hasn't really seen those details to date. So I'd like to urge, if we could get that information for the public as it moves on, I think it's a sense of transparency. It helps everybody have a bigger comfort level and also have time to kind of take a look at the nitty-gritty details. And I'd also like to note the Delaware Riverkeeper Network, in our capacity, with the expertise that we can bring, we would happily help the township look at, for example, stormwater calculations a bit closer to see how everything really is going to match up as the plans develop. One thing that we are very concerned with, Delaware Riverkeeper Network, we had done some file reviews or right to know requests with other agencies. And again, we know here, you as municipal officials have the ability to, deny or allow certain sorts of waivers, but we understand the developer says there are an additional 8 to 9 waivers that they are going to have to achieve because of where this site is. And the developer speaks to that, right? We're talking about a shopping center that's going to continue to be in the floodplain of the Darby Creek, which has tremendous flooding, which is on the record in many different plans, the Darby Creek Conservation Plan and everywhere else. The Joint 105 application, which the developer talked about, pertaining to, again, Joint 105 is encroachment on the stream, on the Darby Creek. Filling of Collin Brook, which again, Collin Brook is the tributary that flows currently under the pavement of the development. And when I hear a developer say, oh, we're being very sensitive, we're looking at the natural design of the creek, that doesn't sound so genuine when it seems we're still going to, keep that tributary under the pavement in a culvert instead of daylighting it, for example, and making it an amenity. And we're going to be filling with the retaining walls, which again, what's interesting is November 11th, there was never a mention of the retaining walls, right? And we understand there are retaining walls there, but from the chapter 105, just to share it, because I have the numbers here, but the proposed project put in by MCB will be installing 2 stormwater outfalls in the floodway of Darby Creek. It will include temporary floodway impacts of 18,639 square feet, permanent floodway impacts of 23,988 square feet, and then permanent floodplain impacts of 162,840 square feet. In addition, Collin Brook, again, the little tributary that feeds into the Darby Creek, is going to need to have 8 new utility line crossings and to enclose the stream again, and maybe the developer can speak to that a bit. But the point that I'm trying to make is that when we fill in and we build larger retaining walls so that that parking lot doesn't flood, and again, the community has many documents of showing the flooding of that parking area, we are causing harm downstream to our downstream neighbors, and we just have to be cognizant of that. Upper Darby community members are really very sensitive. We have a very sensitive group of people who care about downstream neighbors. Ms. Hallam spoke to that a bit, as did Dolores as well. So we really want to be conscientious of the decisions that we're making. So I would just say, there are these different permits that are still pending. There's still a lot of details that we need to be looking at. So I wouldn't rush to approve things. I want to take your power away as a municipality. Even though I understand you've been getting a lot of heat. And again, I'm thankful that you did wait on this project, but I think there's still much more we can do. So I just wanted to ask a couple questions related to green infrastructure and natural things. I did learn tonight, it sounds like there might be a rain garden by the Wawa. As you all know, hopefully, green roofs, rain gardens, bioswales along trails are all working with the natural system. I'm hearing a detention pond. Erin McPherson mentioned, she got into the details with that. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about if we're doing any other kind of innovative things beyond just a detention basin and then another underground basin, and one, I think I heard maybe one rain garden at the Wawa. And I would like to encourage that we do more of that. The other point I wanted to make is just, again, the idea that this is a huge site. Sounds like great. The parking to the back end is being removed. There might be a bit more trees there. I heard some tree numbers thrown out. The public hasn't seen that information as far as I know. I think someone mentioned 1,000 trees and 700 shrubs, but that's the first that I'm hearing of it. I'd like to look at that a little bit closer and understand it a little bit closer. And with that, with any kind of natural planting, I think we also want to think about extreme heat. If we want to have a place where it's work, live, play, where you want people to move from the city to a stop off of Drexel line, I think we want to consider the amount of natural vegetation that will actually cool areas for people. A green roof cools an area for people. If ShopRite would have a green roof on their building, which again, we talked to them for a long time about green roofs, they would make up their costs in air conditioning over time. If they're in it for the long haul, let's do things that are truly sustainable and that will make people want to live, work, and play in this town center. So to wrap up here, and again, I thank you for your time. I didn't want to be redundant with things. So I think we need a bigger buffer. If someone could speak a little bit to the idea of if green roofs are an option, if bioswales will be along those red paths. With the map, I understand there's a lot of walking now, and I understand that might be sidewalks, like where the parking area is, but will there be bioswales and then trees also planted to kind of shade those areas? Same with the sitting areas. Will we be putting in bigger trees near the sitting areas? Again, just to help people feel more comfortable sitting in a parking lot when it's hot with climate change. Another point I wanted to make, and again, I'm just going to ask and then folks can weigh in, was the apartments. I think I was a little bit confused, but I wanted to know if we were actually putting more apartments in harm's way of the floodplain or if it's actually pulled away. And I might have had this wrong. I thought the L was happening, but if someone can speak to that, because again, I don't think we want to have people more in harm's way, even with a retaining wall. And then my last question related to the daylighting of Cullen Brook and consideration of that as a natural feature of the site, which now is, just buried under the ground. Final question I had was about contamination of soils. I understand there might be some dry cleaning fluids that might be an issue. I'm not sure if that's where people are going to be living, but if the developer can speak a bit to that as well, just to make sure that our community is safe, I would appreciate that too.
All right. Great. Thank you, Mr. for your questions. Somebody was going to say something?
Yes, Mr. Musso, it's Sean Kilkenny. And I just want to emphasize that again, that Ms. Serby or no one else other than the township has requested party status. I just want to bring up to the point, and I appreciate all these questions, but a landscaping plan is really part of the land development process, not the zoning process. I know we had a preliminary approval. They'll have to come back for final approval. So I just want to bring that to the board's attention. Thank you.
No, I appreciate it, Mr. Kenny. I was going to make a similar comment that I think a lot of the questions that Ms. Zerbe had to do with the land planning process. But I guess this issue of how many apartments are in the floodplain, I guess that could be a zoning issue. Mr. Demico, who can answer that amongst your witnesses?
Mr. Hornet can probably take that question.
Yes, 0 apartments are in the flood zone.
Great. Thank you. All right. So those are the people who signed up for public comment. Is there any other members of the public who want to? Oh, Councilman Gwynn. Hi.
Council President. Yes.
Okay. So,
I'd like to thank the township and the board for zoning, as well as the owners of the property for presenting this presentation. And I'm for it's moving ahead. It may not be what is the best thing, but it is the best at this time. And I think you have to remember that time is of an essence, and also delays in it cost a lot of money. Ultimately, can end up killing a project. So this is important to move ahead. That's my comment.
Thank you, Councilman
I
Gordon.
have a comment. I thought I signed up. My name is Annette Fenning.
Sorry, what's your name, ma'am?
Annette Fenning.
So you're not on the list, but you're certainly welcome to make comment. Please state your name and address for the record.
Annette Fenning. Can you hear me okay? 5015 Marvine Avenue, Drexel Hill.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, so I just want to get back to some of the financial aspects of, I'll be honest with you. Thank you so much for your presentation. I think public comment would have been prudent at each level because I have so many questions on each level that I can't possibly ask them. So I'll stick to where my area of expertise is. I live here. I've lived here for 31 years, and I live in the Aronimink section of Drexel Hill. I sell real estate, so I know a little bit about the property owners and the community in the area. So I have a couple questions for Ms. Price, who gave us a few projections on the apartments. And I don't know if she's still here, but what I heard.
Well, go ahead. What's your question, ma'am?
What I heard was that the projection was that mature singles and couples coming in from the city, which is true, there are a lot of exits from the city. But she also commented that renters want more space. And we're looking at 81 bedroom units and 38 one bedroom plus den, which could be considered a 2-bedroom, and 32 2-bedroom units. So I believe, and look, I know there's been a lot of comment here and I'm not going to be long. I believe that the estimate of 21 students is underestimated. We also have probably around a 20% of special education in the township. So any amount of students that you have to include the fact that that exists because it's an additional cost and burden on our particular school district. She mentioned that developers are planning conference rooms and pods, and so that residents can enjoy the city's restaurants and enjoy the restaurants and bars that come out of the city. So this development falls a little bit short of what the community desires. So we hear a lot about the environmentalists and we hear a lot about the township officials and the politicians, but we haven't heard from the community. I would like to know how many community members were involved in any meeting of this discussion on a quote town center. We have lost Ace Hardware. We have now lost Anthony's Restaurant. We really have not stood to gain very much as community members who would like to walk to a town center and enjoy each other's company. When I went, and I would like to ask Ms. Price if she thinks that her estimate on that is a little undervalued and that if maybe she might reconsider.
Again, Mr. Musso, like I did previously with, I believe, Mr. Jordan, as a township party, this person has not received, they have the right to comment, obviously you're allowed, but as far as a question and answer session, that is usually resolved for a party at a zoning or conditional use hearing. I understand you've given some latitude related to that, but I would just like to object. Thank you.
All right, well, your objection is noted for the record, Mr. Cocaine, but I like to, the board likes to hear from the public, although I think a lot of these issues aren't really zoning. Although the applicant did put a presentation on about the economics. Is Ms., I don't think it was Ms. Price, that I think it was the school student estimate came from The Economist, whose name is.
Yeah, it was a while ago, right? I'm sorry. I apologize if you feel that I did sign up. I logged in and I got a code and I signed up, so I'm not sure what happened.
You don't even apologize. I just, is the Economist expert here? Ms.
Yeah, I'm
Lavery, I
still
believe?
here, Gina Lavery.
Yeah, sorry, Ms. Lever, I forgot. So what, I know a lot of people have commented, you should maybe talk about one more time why you came up with the 21 students for the school district impact and in response to some of these comments that the current speaker has made.
Yeah, so what we're doing is we've looked at across for an area around Upper Darby within Delaware County. We've looked at what the demographic breakdown by number of residents, by number of school-age children within properties that are renter occupied, and based on the type of unit that they're living in. So these are kind of based on kind of actual estimates of how many school-age children are in these types of units now, based on actual 2020 data, and we predict it for the property going forward. So we're using kind of existing data to predict like how future patterns will happen, and we are confident in this approach, and we use it for fiscal impact analyses all throughout the country.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms.
Are you
What
are
other
you
questions
counting?
do you have? Go ahead.
Are you counting on the Class A tenant that you mentioned in your comments?
I think that Ms. Price talked about the Class A portion. I didn't study the real estate analysis for this. I think she was looking at the unit mix and the market segmentation.
Because Upper Darby has a very demographic, I think, makeup than the Class A tenant. And I mean that in a very sincere sense, that I didn't hear any comment on what the rents are projected to be on these. Can someone tell me what the rents are projected to be? Hello?
Mr. I mean, I'm not sure how relevant it is to a zoning, but.
Analyst gave you for half an hour.
I would just like to object again, Mr. Musso, at this
Yeah.
line of questioning. We've
I'm
going
gonna-
very
I'm
far
gonna-
afield.
I'm gonna
What's
sustain
before the
that
zoning hearing
objection.
board?
Only because it just doesn't really have anything to do with zoning. It's more, I don't know, land planning or general.
Well, it
plan.
has to do with the revenue that comes into the township regarding the apartments.
And I certainly think that's true. It's just that the revenue is not really a zoning consideration. So, do you have any other questions about that you want to ask?
Do the community members have any relevance in the discussion on zoning? Have they been part of the discussion in the zoning?
So this is the discussion in zoning. So the way zoning works is you have public hearings. The zoning members are members of the community that have been appointed by the government. I mean,
Okay, so I would just like to say, and I will finish, that work, life, and play, as many of your previous commenters have said, involve community, involve restaurants, involve shopping, right? And work. So we have now removed it. And I think it is a very big concern to the community. And should be a very big concern to the zoning board, that it does not include any of those aspects of restaurants and shopping other than ShopRite.
great. Well, thank you for your comment. It's certainly noted in part of the transcript.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public want to make a comment?
Councilwoman Wentz would like to speak.
I know you want to go last though, right? I'm just waiting. to
Sure,
see if
yes,
anybody
yes,
else-
yes. I just wanted to make sure you didn't forget me. That's all.
All
Thanks.
right. Anybody else wanted to make a comment? All right. It looks like Councilwoman Wentz, you are up. You are last. So please, any questions you have or comments you'd like to make?
Great, thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation this evening. I was just wondering, did you have the greenery slide? I wasn't able to watch all the slides and presentations while they were happening. I was listening to them, but I couldn't watch them all. So wondering if we had the greenery slide that we had at the land development by chance.
Do you have that, Mr. I mean, it is land development, so they might not have brought it to the zoning hearing board.
No, but we did not make it part of the exhibits, Ms. Wentz.
All right. So, but
Okay.
it will be continuing to be part of land development, as I'm sure Mr. Kilkenny will advise.
No, right, I understand. It's just that it's a really good image, so I just wanted to talk about. Okay, so great. So I just wanted to thank you, thank the zoning board members for all their great questions. I did also want to respond to some things that my fellow council members had said earlier in the equation. During our land development process, there was opportunity for residents to speak. It was not in person, but they did send in comments. So we had up to eight questions provided by the public during those two presentations that were before council. Unfortunately, at that time, they didn't have the specifics on the breakdown of the apartments at that time. And so I learned a lot tonight in the zoning hearing. I just wanted to also emphasize that on the green space side of the equation, you guys have done a great job of enhancing the green space within this area and dealing with a lot of the issues that had come up with the appeal to the 2018 zoning board hearing. I know I spoke during that time. And I just want to, thank you for all your due diligence in making sure that you uphold the agreement with the appeal, as well as, took it as far as you could, or as far as you have. And I do appreciate the other environmentalists that have spoken this evening to suggest other ways of enhancing that aspect of the equation. I do understand our residents' concerns on the apartments and in reference to the school district. I had spoken to members of the school district prior to this point in time. They had indicated that the improvements they had planned with the Aronimink school was predominantly for the students that currently live within Upper Darby Township, not necessarily having the concept of an increased population coming from this apartment complex as well. So something just to be aware of. The 21 students doesn't signify exactly where these kids would land within the school district, and that maybe by that point in time, it can be adjusted. Another thing I just wanted to comment on that I got a hold of, there have been questions on Anthony's restaurant. And so apparently a press release came out today in reference to Anthony's, quoting that they've been here for 25 years, and that, to just quote the press release itself, well known for its catering banquets, Anthony's Restaurant, which opened in 1995, will move from Drexel Line Town Center as they look to change business models and convert to a smaller footprint. The decision to leave Drexel Line was weighed very heavily on me, says Anthony Foster, proprietor of Anthony's Restaurant. The success of our facility over the past 25 years is all due to the amazing support from our community. Thank you. So I just wanted to throw that in because I know that there had been questions in reference to Anthony's Restaurant. And I just wanted to say that as council, we support this project. We support all the hard work that everyone's put into it. There's always room to grow, but I just wanted to say you guys are doing an awesome job. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Wentz. And that concludes public comment.
Peter, can
yeah.
I just ask one more thing?
You can ask whatever you like, Ms. Wilson. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Because this is probably my only chance to ask this. The settlement of the appeal happened in November 2018, and the land development plan was submitted in February 2020. What happened in between? What was the delay because of?
So
this is for neither Mr. Shable or Mr. Bramble.
Mr. Dan, somebody want to answer the zoning hearing board member's question?
Well, Mr. Musso, I'll just say that, go ahead, Dave. It sounds like
No,
you
go
want
ahead, Mark, if you wanted to say something first. And
to.
then
No, you go. You go.
I just want to understand your question. You're saying what was the reason for the?
There seemed like there was this big period of inactivity between the settlement of the appeal and the filing of the land development plan. It was over a year. And what happened to cause that delay?
So as you can imagine, any project like this, and it's one of the reasons we're in front of you tonight and really need your help, it is literally like putting lots of different puzzle pieces together. Anytime something gets pulled out, the whole story gets re-examined. And especially when you're talking about a project the scale of what we're talking about here. This is $100 million project. It's not just going in and building a house or a small apartment building. So obviously every time something moves, it causes all these other things to move. And of course, intervening in all of this, certainly over the last year, we've had a complete sea change in what makes financial sense. Changes in office, changes in retail, and all those other things. So it's really events conspire against you whenever there's a delay. We have a saying in real estate: is time kills deals, and that's not, it's just the nature of things. If something moves, then you got to look at how all the pieces come together in order to pull the project together. But we are super committed to getting this done. And we need your help. Like, we're not coming to you because we just decided that, we just want to change everything. This plan can work financially, and we need it. So we're here. We really appreciate the time and energy you guys have put into this and thinking through it and asking questions. That's why we have all these professionals here to answer you guys. But we need you, and we need you to support us here so we can get this thing going.
Okay. So any other questions from any board members right now? All right. So Mr. D'Amico, do you want to make a closing statement of any type?
It's Mr. Musso, just to thank again everybody for their input in the board, for their time, and to reiterate what Mr. Bramble said. This has been a long, arduous process with a lot of twists and turns. And as Mr. Councilman Gwynn said, no plan is perfect, but this is the plan that we're asking for the relief for as it relates to the apartments. And we desperately need that in order to move forward.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Kilkenny, any closing statement by the township?
Yes, thank you very much, members of the Zoning Hearing Board, Mr. Musso. The Upper Darby Township, on behalf of the mayor, asks that you grant the relief the applicant is requesting tonight. And I want to thank the members of the public, the members of the Zoning Hearing Board, council members that commented. I know there was a lot of debate tonight, and there was a lot of reference to the 2018 decision and this plan that came forward in 2020. But I just want to be very clear. Although there was a zoning hearing in 2018 and relief was granted, we didn't get to land development. We didn't get to an engineered plan. So want to thank the Zoning Hearing Board for their due diligence tonight, looking at this engineered plan, the first one that has ever been in front of Upper Darby, and urge you to help Upper Darby move forward and grant the zoning relief requested. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kilkenny. So the record is now closed. We've admitted all the exhibits into evidence and we've taken testimony. So I'll turn it over to our chair to see what the board would like to do now.
Before we do that, Peter, would I be able to make a comment, or is that?
You can make a comment anytime, well, let's see what you're going to do. If you're going to vote on something, usually during deliberations, you can make comments. I guess, Madam Chair, what are you thinking of doing right now? You're muted.
You're muted.
That everybody all throughout 2020.
Sorry, yeah, exactly. I guess I was looking to kind of deliberate this.
Sure.
within our board. I don't know that I was ready to make a motion tonight.
Okay.
I don't know if any of the other members were, but
Does our deliberation have to be public?
No, you're a quasi judicial body, so we can certainly, we've closed the record, and if the applicant were to waive deadlines, we'd have longer time. But basically, you have 45 days from tonight for us to issue a written opinion. There's this special meeting, so our next regularly scheduled meeting is actually January 21st. It's a week early in January for some reason. But that's,
Do we have to announce it at a meeting? Like,
you definitely absolutely have to vote in public in a meeting. So the
Okay.
way we would normally do this is you can say, all right, we've closed the record, and at our next meeting on January 21st, we will vote on this application. But in the interim, you can certainly take time to review everything, and we can meet in executive session to discuss what was presented tonight.
yeah, I think that's the best course of action.
Okay. All right, but if anybody has any comments, I know Mr. Heyman had some comments he wanted to make, and so you can feel free to make those now. And then after that, maybe somebody makes a motion that we, you hold it over for further review with the idea that you're going to vote on it at the January 21st meeting. But go ahead, Mr. Heyman. I know you had some comments.
So I wanted to say thank you to everybody that came here tonight. I know this is long, it's late. And as a member, we got a lot of thank yous for being here, but thank you for participating, because it's important that you come here, that you speak regardless of your opinion. But I wanted to address, there were some comments made that this was political, or that some decision making here might be political. And I wanted to be clear for anybody who's listening or anybody who's watching a recording of this meeting tonight, that the zoning hearing board is not going to consider any political, or there will be no political considerations in the board's decision. That's, I think, frankly, inappropriate for this sort of venue. And I wanted to address that, just to make that clear tonight, that we will not be considering those things, because that was said several times.
Okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes too, for a complex application like this, we might ask for, I don't know if you want to ask for a proposed findings of fact and conclusions of law from the applicant.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Great. So Mr. D'Amico, when can you get us your proposed findings of fact and conclusions of law?
2 weeks. I think we could do that in 2 weeks.
Great. So, January 6th.
Yes.
Great. All right. And then we can review that and deliberate it. And I guess you'll want to vote then at the January 21st meeting. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So I guess I would make a motion to, it's not continue the hearing, it would just be,
No, just motion to hold it over for further study pending submission of the findings of fact and conclusions of law. Obviously, the township wants to submit something as well.
I don't anticipate us having a different position, so I think that would be redundant. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And let me ask this, is the applicant willing to waive any MPC deadlines through our January 21st meeting? Or do you need a written opinion within 45 days?
I mean, I know you're addressing the applicant. We asked for a special meeting just because this is of great urgency to the township to move forward. I know the applicant has expressed, wanting to break ground in the spring if we're lucky enough to go ahead and get approvals. So I would just urge the zoning hearing board, understand that you have to deliberate. You heard a great deal of testimony tonight to make an informed decision, but that you take action on January 21st just to move the process forward. That's all. But
yep, yeah, and I think we definitely will do that. So
One thing,
That'd be appreciated.
one thing, just for my other members to consider. I mean, we're having a special meeting tonight specifically to hear this case. I'm not saying that we should have to feel like we are compelled to vote tonight, but I definitely think that's something that we should consider voting tonight. If that's not, the board members disagree with me, I completely understand and obviously support it. But I think we've spent a lot of time covering this material, and certainly there are some things that we could receive, but I'm prepared to vote for on this tonight. I don't know about the other members.
I guess that was my opinion. I don't know if Peggy has another opinion on that, but I mean, I would just like to think about it. It's, it's been close to three and a half hours of testimony here, and I don't want to discredit anyone that talked, so that's why I want to think through it and talk about it in exec session, kind of go over all those items. But I mean, I'm one of three members, voting members, so.
I agree with Erin. There's a couple points that I think that we need to talk over in an executive session just to see where we stand with it and try to get some clarity.
All right, so I guess I will make a motion to, I totally forgot what you said.
Are you making a motion to hold it over for further study, with intent to vote on at your next regular meeting, which is scheduled for January 21st?
Yes, I will make a motion to hold over the hearing for the fact of findings, reviewing the fact of findings, and make a decision on that next meeting in January.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 All right. Well, again, so we've concluded all the evidence. I know the applicant will submit us proposed findings of fact and conclusions of law by January 26th, and the board will deliberate and vote in public at our January 21st meeting. That'll be the first item on our agenda on January 21st.
Wait a minute, you say he's going to submit it by January 26th, but we're going to.
January 6th.
Okay,
we'll
okay.
Proposed findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Okay.
And then sometime after that, we'll have a special executive session to deliberate this at length. And then on January 21st, which is our next regularly scheduled meeting, this will be the first item on the agenda. And we won't take any additional testimony or evidence or public comment. All that is closed. It's just your opportunity to vote. And part of the vote is then deliberating in public. But certainly the vote has to be in public.
Okay.
All right. All right. Well, that was our one item on the agenda tonight. We've finished all the evidence. It's 10:30. So perhaps a motion to adjourn
Yes,
would be in
yep,
order.
I will make a motion to adjourn the hearing for tonight.
Second it.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. See everybody in the new year. Happy holidays.
Okay, happy holidays. Bye-bye.
Happy holiday.